Hey everybody, welcome back to Balanced Exchange. I'm Papa Bear here with.
Kr0nus, and this podcast we're going to talk about the best and the worst presidents in our opinion. Hey, it's me, Rasan. I don't know, man. Huge hole in my,
Yeah, just in
understanding. My fellow Americans.
Papa Bear here. As long as whatever you're doing doesn't hurt anyone else, I don't care.
Different perspective of what an interesting topic is than I would assume.
This is Balanced Exchange. Yeah, so Dirty Stu, who lives in Scotland, he has been a long-time listener of my other podcast. He's a very interesting guy, and he wanted to know about. He doesn't obviously. It's fascinating to me when people that aren't Americans ask about American policies. It just shows like me how much of America is still considered sort of like the world leader, even though we kind of stumbled a few steps in the past couple of years. But anyway, so yeah, he asked me to do this podcast to see who do we think are the best and the worst, and then the actual policies and what they did to make them the best or the worst in our opinion. So if you listen to the other Balance Exchange, you'll probably know who's the best that we think, and then we'll give actual opinions and with their policies as we're going through it. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I was gonna make a joke like when we start this because I know that we both have it exactly the same. So I was like, we just both say it like this one. Okay, great podcast. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm glad he said bring up the policies and what the person do.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, because there's lots of reasons, and it's definitely. I'll recommend a book, and like we always do, right? There's a bunch of stuff, so
yeah.
we'll get into it.
All right. So what are we drinking?
So I am gonna split up two different things. So this one's actually not a Truly. So I have these Mike's hard lemonades this time instead of the Trulies because I'm not really worried about keto, but they are still actually low. I grabbed them thinking I wasn't have to worry about it, but they actually still are only 1 gram of carbs. So I could do these
nice.
while I'm on keto too.
Yeah. Nice. It's always nice to have that other option, And I am drinking Through the Wire. It's by Randy's. I can't. I'm sorry, Blackstack Brewing. So yeah, this is sorry, there was two labels on here, so there we go. And it's it's an IPA that is 7% alcohol. I was gonna drink something harder, but I was like, you know what? I need to speak a little better tonight, so maybe I'll drink the harder one later. So.
It's funny that you mentioned it because I honestly felt like by the end of the last podcast, I just sounded like an idiot. I was like, God, I've had too much to drink. I am just rambling. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Listen, when you do a long podcast, at some point you're gonna sound like an idiot, and it happens to me all the time. And it's just especially when you've been drinking, this is mind altering. So sometimes you ramble, or we ramble. It's all right. And
So,
go ahead.
what are you reading?
I am reading 1491, an awesome book that I will recommend to you and anybody else that's listening to this podcast. It's obviously the year before Columbus, quote unquote, discovered America. He didn't discover America. People are already here. A lot of people, way more than people originally thought. And also, the Vikings came even before Columbus. So it's kind of silly. A whole bunch of other groups came to America before Columbus. And they go into depth about what life was like before, during, and after Columbus started the whole colonization of America, or in the Americas, because it wasn't just Columbus. It was the Spanish. Cortez came to the Mexico area and South America, and there's a few other expeditionary groups that went to those areas, and they go into detail how there were way more people here than what people thought. So yeah.
And Amerigo Vespucci, didn't he get there before anybody too, right? Because it's named after him. The Americas are named after Vespucci.
But it should have really been named after the natives that were here. Even though it was a bunch of different natives, but these places had names. Even the names that we have here in America, Massachusetts and I think there's a whole bunch of names that are basically native names.
Yeah, tons and tons. And a lot of times it's names that we're so familiar with that we don't even think about what the heck does that word even mean? And then you realize at that moment when you start going I don't understand It's probably a Native American name that we named it for the tribe that was here, or the name that they gave this river or this lake or that mountain or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. It was a whole lot of like there was a lot of fuckery. I'll just be honest. A lot of fuckery happened back then, and yeah, the fact that they were calling people savages back then is just like they weren't savage people. Like in some ways, they just had different technology than the Europeans had. So, well, I could talk about that book on a whole different podcast, but it's really good. Definitely check it
Nice.
out. So, what do you
Yeah.
read, man?
It won. I mean, my history a bit too, so it's obviously one I would get into. So it sounds cool.
Yeah, you'll definitely like it.
So I'm back on it because I got new credits this month. So and then I
Haha.
finished off the book from the last one. So How the Post Office Made America, and I finished up that, and then I started Awaken Online Dominion. So book 4.
Nice,
So,
nice. I think I've listened
excited.
to that book at least twice. I'm pretty sure that's the one I listened to at least twice.
So this is it's pretty cool. Things are getting dark, dark, dark. I'm like, whew. For his like stuff that he's doing, plus his like real world side of stuff that's happening to him. Um, I will say, like, I don't want to do too many spoilers because so I'm dancing around it a little. But I thought that um, it's I can see the conflict being built for the main antagonist to have his own like relationship stress thing going on at the same time, rather than just being a foil, right? Creating him as like an actual character at this point finally, because he was a very static and obvious like that's the villain guy for my main character kind of guy.
Yeah,
They're finally kind of building that character into almost its own character with its own other stories. There were hints of it along the way, but like finally giving a lot more to it. I was like, okay, that's making that. And you always love that, right? That's the Thanos thing. You're like, you made that character understandable, and that makes this whole thing way more interesting.
yeah. I think it's called. I think it's. I don't know if you're there yet, but the Nemesis Project. So
Mm.
it's like very interesting to have like a character in a book who's literally the villain. Like that's what he's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be is like the villain, and it's just like the way they kind of do like a roundabout way to like make this guy the villain is excellent. There's other books that are excellent villain books that I've read as well, but this one just goes on another level with like the detail and like really going through his own personal story of like why he is gonna likely be the villain of this entire like video game. So yeah,
Well, yeah, and he's our protagonist as the reader,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like the villain in the story world thing. And yeah, you love Jason, but then it's funny that like it's a different kind of thing going on. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah, I really liked. I like Jason. I like Frank. I like. What was the girl's name?
Riley.
Yeah, Riley. So I was thinking Riley because it's my daughter's name. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
Riley too, and even the water mage. She was great
Oh yeah,
too.
now I think of her name. Oh
Yeah, I can't remember her name. Like I said, it's been a minute since I read a lot
yeah,
of books. But did you read?
they were just talking about her today because they just kind of yeah.
Have you listened to the side stories
Yeah. I'm trying to do them with side quests like in
in
order.
order?
So
Okay, yeah, that's what I did. That's definitely the way to go.
like 3 and then 3.5 and whatever. So
Yeah.
it's good.
So if y'all pick up these books, don't skip the side stories. Like
No.
read the side stories. They're actually like they enhance the story because in between certain books, all of a sudden somebody has like a different skill set, and you're like, why are they like this now? And you got to read the side stories. So
Yeah, imagine not going on Riley's side quest with her.
yeah, yeah,
Like, how would like you would be so lost coming back in? I think it was 2, or maybe it was 1.5 was her side quest. Maybe it was
yeah,
2.
yeah. And it's a great one because it's especially great because when my initial thoughts of her, I didn't have high opinions of her, especially like what she did to Jason, and
Yeah.
then like listening like her whole side story was like, all right, this is like a fleshed out
Okay.
character. Yeah,
Yeah. And it makes a big difference. So.
yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
now comes the disclaimer.
Yep.
So at this point in watching our videos, you may or may not know that I am an active duty United States Marine. And I've been doing this for 20 plus years, so I know that it's really important for me to make sure to get this out there. If it's your first time watching this, please stick around and make sure you understand the disclaimer. If you've watched a whole lot of our episodes so far, feel free to go ahead and jump ahead to the new content. So what I need to talk about today is that I am not authorized and have no way of being approved to speak on behalf of the Marine Corps. So any opinion that I give or any concept that I discuss today is the position and the opinion of just me, myself, just a man who has a bachelor's degree in political science and a master's degree in leadership and organizational management, and has spent my whole life looking at government structures and social contracts and how these things are supposed to work, what the philosophies and things behind them are, and read a lot of books on that kind of stuff. And it's definitely one of my personal and key passions. And so when you hear me maybe give a position or a concept on something, that is only my own position. I am not a public affairs officer for the Marine Corps. I am in no way giving what the Marine Corps' official position on anything would be. And honestly, a lot of the topics we're going to cover here, I'm pretty sure the Marine Corps doesn't have a particular position on. So if you do have any questions about what the Marine Corps' policy on certain things could be, you can definitely research that and find those out, or leave a comment or send us a message if you can get a hold of us somehow, and we can maybe be able to answer those questions for you. So with that said, let's get you back to this week's content.
And we're back.
Easy day. It's nice that we can do that.
Yeah. Somebody else will do the things. They'll do the needful.
I probably need to actually record a new one because obviously I'm like off keto right now, but I'm going to try to stick to it for most of the trip. I'm going to probably enjoy myself at Disney World a little. That'll be a break week or whatever, but I'm still going to kind of get back to it. And then after the vacation, for sure, going back on hard. And like, my cheeks kind of pudgy in that video. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you're definitely, your face is much slimmer. Well, your whole like face, neck, your whole body's probably slimmer too. But you see your upper body.
It's 45 pounds, man. I'm sure I put back on 5 while I've been on this break. But
yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, when I went keto, I dropped, I think, 30 something pounds.
Yeah.
And then I was getting into like, I got into the 160s, and I was like, all right, it's probably time to stop. Like, let's eat normally, because for me it was like a runaway train. Like, I kept just losing weight, and I don't want to be in like the 150s because my head would be way too big, so
it's just realistic.
yeah. So I was like, let me look normal. I think 170, in the 170s is like my ideal weight. But even before I did keto, I always thought, for me, 200 pounds was like my go-to weight. Like, just stay 200 pounds, like, you're good. Not 250, not 180, 200 pounds. I look good. I feel okay. Then I did keto. I got down to like the 170s, and I was like, you know what? I feel pretty good. Let's just stay here.
Yeah, and I think I'll probably end up gaining some back when I get back to like strength training the way I really like to, and it'll be muscle though, so I'll be all right with it.
Yeah, just be careful. Well, no, don't be careful. Well, just be aware that like some of the exercises that you're gonna do, it might not be, your body might not respond the way it used to. So.
Oh yeah, no, I'm expecting to come back totally slow because of keto. Like, it's not gonna want to do what it wants to do, used to do. So it'll be different, but
you can do it. But it's just like, so for me, the example is, I started like cycling, obviously, on the Peloton bike, and when I did jiu-jitsu when I was in keto, I was fine. Like, I could, I did jiu-jitsu just fine. But on the bike, I was just like, I was dying. Like, when I went back into keto, and I was just like, why is everything so much harder? And then I, eventually started introducing carbs back in. I was like, okay, I can do this now. But I think the problem is that when I was doing jiu-jitsu, I was already like at a certain level where I can use technique to like not gas out. But when I'm on the bike, like, I'm literally like constantly cycling. And it's like, even when you're like bicycling outside, like in a normal environment, you're not constantly fucking turning your pedals.
Coast.
Yeah, but you don't coast on a Peloton bike because it's a weighted flywheel, so you have to keep pedaling the whole time. I just didn't recognize that, but just make adjustments.
Well, all right. You want to kick it off?
Yeah, you want me to talk about my guy, my favorite president of all time?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we just both list our favorite and then go from there.
Okay. My favorite is Lyndon B. Johnson.
All right. My favorite is also Lyndon B. Johnson. All right, great podcast. I got to do the joke. I got to do it. Yeah, because and we both knew. We both talked about it earlier. As soon as you mentioned it, I was like, we're gonna have the same story. But I do think you've learned some new ones, and we may have different key points we want to make about why.
Well, I thought yours before. Hold on, we talked about this before on another podcast. That's why I thought it was going to be different. I thought it was Jesus Christ. There was a different president that did the whole. The guy that made the national forest thing. What's the guy's name?
Roosevelt? Teddy
Yeah,
Roosevelt?
Roosevelt. I thought Roosevelt was your guy.
He would potentially, and I was going to say, if you want me to pick someone other than the same one,
Okay.
Roosevelt would be my next for a couple of reasons. And so we can go into we'll finish up Johnson on yours, I guess, and we could talk about Roosevelt a little bit on mine if we want.
Well, the interesting thing about me actually researching a lot more of the policies that Lyndon B. Johnson had is that yeah, he was great for like a lot of purposes, especially civil rights and poor people. But he's not without controversy. So
No.
as I was doing research, it's like there was the whole Vietnam thing and continuing escalations with Vietnam. That's a huge black mark on his presidency. And there's also some crazy conspiracy theories about how he had, JFK assassinated, which I don't subscribe to. I don't think he did. It's ridiculous. So
That's a little, yeah.
yeah, it's a bit of a reach. Especially because the things that he was championing for, JFK wasn't really a champion for. Like LBJ.
They weren't even,
Go ahead.
I was saying, yeah, they weren't competing for the same votes,
No.
And so I don't know if you saw this, but one of the key things that made Johnson successful was like he knew exactly like what the votes would be. He was really, really good at counting votes. He could do the math and say like this will pass or this won't pass. This is what would need to be done in order to get these people to agree, and he knew that wasn't his competition. He wasn't competing for the same votes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was a really smart dude, and the fact that he grew up in Texas and the South, and he grew up in racist times, and he had to like kind of rise above that, and even before he had some sort of racist views, in his past, but he rose above that once he saw poverty, and once he saw that poverty, like who poverty was affecting the most, and he saw it was mostly black and brown people. And then he was like, you know what? I'm going to take a stand. He used to be a teacher too. So that's when he started recognizing these things. And he really didn't stop, fighting for poor people's rights and, civil rights in general for minorities. And he didn't have to do it at all.
No. So the book that it's a freaking 3-part like master's class series basically on Lyndon Baines Johnson called Master of the Senate. It's written by Robert A. Caro, and I remember reading it. This has been years, right? I read it years ago, and it's called Master of the Senate. It mostly follows his years in the Senate, not his years in the presidency, and it kind of ends there. It's like that it was his work towards that point because his story of being president has been told so much that this author really wanted to focus on his years in the Senate. And what I felt like he did that was super, super smart was, like you mentioned at the time, it's racist times. These are times when that was the normal dialogue, right? We're talking about segregated drinking fountains and everything, right? And so he saw those issues, and you can read in his notes and in his stuff that he understood what the real problem was that he wanted to fix, but he talked about it as helping the poor and like basically trying to keep that out of his dialogue so that he could get more votes, right? He knew I have to do the math on what I say. Every word is going to matter. And the people who I'm trying to help are going to know. But then the people who I need to vote for this so they can help them need to maybe think I'm kind of doing it a different way.
Yeah.
Like misdirection. Like he was magic man at this kind of stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he did a really smart thing of just like seeing like people that were in need, and I think that's something that people in today's politics, they think about people that are in need, and they just think about what can I get from their voting group, and I don't think that was really in his mind. And in my opinion, I think that what was in his mind is that the people that are in need, we need to show the rest of America that these people are in need, and to get them to get on this side, to like get them the proper rights as everybody else.
So, what were some of the key things he actually like passed or did that you thought were really big? I'm gonna pull up a couple
Huh.
of mine because I'm not fully prepared for it, to be honest.
There was a lot. I have a very long list, and this is okay. Before we get into this list, I want you to. We're gonna read off. I'm gonna read off these things. He's gonna read off some more, and I want you to just think about in today's time. Could you think about any president in the last 20 years that has done anywhere near this amount of work? And this is I'm truncating what he did through his policies. Okay, and these are not executive orders. They're actually bills that were passed, ratified. They're in law and amendments. They're, most presidents they don't come anywhere near this as far as like actually getting shit done. That's going to be lasting. So I'm going to start off with the first one. All right, and it's the 24th Amendment, and it was ratified on January 23rd, 1964, and it was basically abolishing poll taxes. So before, uh, if you wanted to vote, you got taxed when you voted, and this seriously disenfranchised people that were poor, people of color, because they were likely poor as well, because they didn't have money. So abolishing the poll tax made sure that poor people and minorities that were also poor could vote without having to pay a tax. So that's a huge deal, huge for voting rights. You want me to keep going? You
So
still
you're
looking?
saying we're gonna go back and forth. So you're saying the removal of the poll tax was probably one of the biggest ones. You said because that was the amendment part. I
That was
thought
the
the
amendment.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
There's more. That was the one that happened. I think it was one of the first things that he did.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
So
I think we both kind of messed up. If you're outside of America, or even if you're an American, you're thinking, how did Lyndon B. Johnson become president? Well, he was the vice president when JFK got assassinated. So that's and then he also was voted in president after his first term as like being
yep.
promoted to president. So you know,
Yeah, and so what's weird is he technically could have run again
hmm.
because while he served the remainder of that first term, he wasn't elected
Yeah.
for that first term. So then he won the second one, the second term that he served, and was elected to it. So he could have technically run again if he wanted to, and been the second longest sitting president if he had done that, but he didn't. He didn't want to.
Yeah, he was kind of old. I think I'm pretty sure he died shortly after he was done being president. So no.
He kind of knew that he was at the end of what he could do effectively, anyways. A lot of his effectiveness had died out at that point. People had met, like a lot of happens in politics. People figured out how to counter a lot of what he was doing. So
Yeah. All right.
for me, some of his big stuff came prior to it. Like I said, I read his stuff on being in the Senate on his way there, which made me like recognize more about what he did in the presidency. But I really liked kind of focusing on him fixing up the Senate, like making it actually a functional thing, because it was much like it is now before he was there. He created like blocks of people who he could work through, and so because of that, he was able to do a lot with pushing power infrastructure out through all of the states, making it kind of a requirement, pushing through some laws that would have gotten stopped in the Senate in order to make power distribution a requirement, right? Everyone needs to have access to sustainable, reliable power. That was one of the big things he pushed that I thought was huge, and I think is something that needs to be talked about in other like topics today. Is there an argument for the similar kinds of things with other infrastructure type projects today that needs to be done?
Like the internet and the post office push the internet. That's a great idea. I'm just saying, man. that's
Someone needs to, right?
Papa Bear's
it needs
idea.
to say, well, in like you said, the post office should do it.
Yeah.
I did say that last week, so it makes sense, right? So infrastructure to support communications and like access to information was a huge part of it. And if you didn't watch last week's, that's kind of where that idea went. That was what the post office was for, and it would be so weird. It was so weird. I was like, it dawned on me when I was listening to that book. Like that means the post office should basically be responsible for making sure we all have access to the internet. It was kind of one of those lightning bolt moments. I was like, wow, that's a crazy idea. That's never
It's
gonna
not
happen.
crazy. I honestly I think it should happen because I mean, at some point, the internet is going to become a utility. It should have been a utility like at least 10 years ago, probably more than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that point, it should be something that the government should be able to guarantee to any home. And why not use the post office to do that? I mean, it's a guaranteed money generator for the post office.
Yeah, and now we're leaning towards potentially having an option where that doesn't mean, miles and miles of fiber optic cables laid between the next closest node in that rural town. You just put a Starlink terminal out there and
Yeah.
boom. So I don't know. Seems like it could work.
I think it could work.
Yeah. What's that?
I think it could work. I think it's an excellent idea.
So yeah, so that for me was one of the big ones for Johnson, was like this idea that he was willing to fight to make sure that something that had clearly become possible to make reliable and accessible to everybody and made people's lives better, that it should be a requirement. So
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
And I think almost everything that's probably on both of our lists that he did, it goes down to helping out like the common man and common woman as well. People that are not rich, people that are poor, like getting power. Like, yeah, if you were rich back in the day, you'd have power. But if you were living in Podunk, Mississippi, you probably didn't have power back then.
No.
Or
Texas, too. That's his home state. He was like, Texas is bad. It's all like there's tons of space that have no power.
Yeah, and they still have issues with power, and they're passing. I'm not gonna go into it. I'm gonna go off on a tangent. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
No. Go back and check out our podcast, Infrastructure and Power in Texas, when they had this stuff go out, and we made the point that it's probably the exact same power infrastructure that Johnson made sure came around in the 1960s and 70s.
Yeah, and they're passing other legislature that has nothing to do with like they're actually securing their power in their state. So that should be of most importance, and they're not. It's not the top priority. It's not. It's just weird. You would think in a place that gets hot as fuck and cold as fuck that maybe having power would be important, but whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go to mine since we're going back and forth.
Let's move past it. Keep going.
We'll move past it. Sorry, Texas. We'll go to the biggest, the main reason why Lyndon B. Johnson is my favorite president of all time is because of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, where he outlawed discrimination based upon race, color, sex, religion, or national origin. So, yeah, that was a huge deal, giving everybody the same equal rights. Finally, even though in the Constitution it says we're all created equal, but we're really not, because it's all men are created equal. So obviously that immediately excludes women, and it obviously didn't extend to slaves or people that were indentured servants. So yeah, the fact that
or Native Americans.
Yeah, Native Americans. Yeah, any group non-whites. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was a huge deal to get that pushed through, especially at the time where there was like a lot of riots going on. Not really riot. It was a lot of protests, and then a lot of heavy-handed police brutality, and then there were some riots that kind of went through even past that time. But recognizing that you have a huge wound on just day-to-day American life, and hey, let's fix that. It's a huge issue. Let's fix it through legislature, and I think that has done some of the most good in America, more than any. Actually, it's probably up there with like one of the most important things that's ever been done. Because yeah, you might say like, oh well, the slaves were freed, but they were quote unquote freed. They were free, but then they had no jobs. They shortly after that, federal and local governments made a whole bunch of bullshit laws that would put former slaves in jail basically back into slavery, just for not having a job, and they had Jim Crow laws, so, but this eliminated the vast majority of that up until some other fuckery came around, but still, he did
reestablishing some of that old shit.
Yeah, he did his best to fix it, and I think that he's done the most to fix the obvious issues that we had around racism in America.
So you mentioned it, right? So it passed in 1964, right?
Yeah.
So it was 1963 when he technically became president, and he had started working all of this stuff when he was still in the Senate prior to Kennedy even being elected. Um, it was funny too because like he was kicking ass. Like I talked about, like this is the stuff. To me, like the big Fireball Johnson stuff happened in the Senate, and he then got becomes on the same ticket as Kennedy, and still felt like he was going to have this kind of like this punch impact that he's been having in the Senate as like the leader of the Senate, and then he's the vice president.
Yeah.
And he was just so pissed and frustrated. He's like, I can't do anything. And people who are now the new like leaders in the Senate who took over some of his old positions and stuff, they weren't listening to it. They're like, nah, we got this stuff. And so he's trying to, still work deals like he was doing before, but they're like, you don't have any power to sway anything. So he's still trying to work through this bill that he had started when he was in the Senate, and that Kennedy and him both were kind of pushing for, but it was not going anywhere. But then tragedy strikes, and then he was able to then, okay, now I am the president, get this thing done.
Yeah.
Was able to then really put some leverage on and actually get it done. It was, like you said, it was one of the very first things, and clearly something that he thought was very important, and obviously very, very much was, to make sure that he kind of, especially right after a tragedy like that, to start trying to use that to, it's terrible, right? But we talk about politicians learn that you need to use tragedies to create good social opportunities to move forward and unify and be better. And he did that, right? Took that tragedy and turned it into something that was intended to make us a better society.
Yeah, and I think, in today's terms, like, people use tragedies to, like, kind of just oppress more people. It's like, look at, like, the last few tragedies that we've had, like, around the world, and, like, the vast majority of them is just to just keep oppressing people. And the fact that, he back then decided to, use a tragedy to actually uplift people.
Yeah.
I think that's altruism, man. I mean, he didn't need to do it. There's like nothing in his life. I mean, yeah, he saw poverty, but so many people see poverty, they don't care. They're apathetic about it. But the fact that this guy saw it and he was just like, we need to like fix this. They're all Americans. Let's make sure that they're all treated as Americans, and let's make an actual change for us to heal this nation. And I think that's great because I think he saw the issues with, continued segregation and racism in America and just like brutality, and it's just like, let's try to fix it. And we need some more of that today, like just trying to fix things.
And I think part of what made that possible for him was, well, you might not call it, neither of us would maybe call it like poverty for it, but his family fell on hard times when he was young. When he was like 13, 14 years old, he saw how bad it could get.
Yeah.
Like they had to sell the farm, they had to move to this different house in town so they could just get jobs. Like they fell on some hard times, hard enough to be like, this is not good that there's a system, that can make it this hard for us. Like, how bad is it for everybody else?
Yeah, and I think that's, I was watching a documentary
Up, right?
where he went to like a different neighborhood and he was like, oh, this is what it's like. Yeah. Like when he saw like what it's like, he saw like, sorry to say, like, only because it's gonna sound fucked up, but please take this as me with like the greatest intentions, okay? He saw like what it was like to be in poverty, like when you're white, and then to be like in poverty if you're a minority. Like it can be different.
Yeah.
And he saw that difference. I'm not saying that it's different all the time. I understand there's plenty of poor people of European descent that live, terrible lives, and I'm not discounting like what you went through, but
no,
let's lift everybody up.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is, on the average, within a demographic, it's a hell of a lot more likely.
Yeah.
That you are poor and are beyond poor, are in poverty, right? There's another stage beyond that. If you're not white or of European descent. So that's why it's like, it's not that it's not possible. And obviously he saw it, I saw it, and like you're saying, it's not excluding someone else's experiences. Neither of us would do that. We're just saying, like, we're talking about a law of averages here. We're talking about the standards and like the basic concept. And if the societal norm is that it's more common, then maybe there's a problem there.
Well, it actually goes beyond the law of averages. It's actually it was the law back then. Like where if you were black, you got redlined. Like you couldn't you literally could not buy a home in an affluent neighborhood. You know, and it happened with other ethnicities as well. I'm not going to say just black because I mean natives here they got put into reservations, which is on
Yeah.
mostly shit land. So
Which is weird, right? So how common do you think the knowledge would be, and the understanding would be of the average citizen, the fact that Indian reservations exist?
yeah, they
Oh,
don't.
yeah.
Yeah,
They know that. They know it.
but they don't
Understand,
know
right?
they don't understand the living conditions and the land that they're actually
So
on.
I was going a different way with it.
Oh.
So like, you're fine. So, but how much do they know about redlining?
Yeah, zero. Yeah.
None. So like we know that Native Americans were put on reservations and told you will just go live over there in that box. But there's very little discussion and very little understanding and conversation about the fact that like they did the same thing. They said, you group of people will just go live over here in this little area.
Yeah, and
So it's kind of crazy. Like, and honestly, I think I'd heard of it, didn't understand it, and then when we really laid it out last season, that was when it really all kind of clicked together.
Well, when you think about like comparing it, like honestly, I think that if they would have given people of African descent like our own reservations and didn't like overly police us, I think we'd be better off. To be honest with you, because we had times where we had affluent communities where we had our own like little groups, but they didn't leave us alone. Like they literally bombed us and had the police come in, kill us, burn down our homes. And like if you look up the Tulsa race riots, there's a whole bunch of race riots. I'm not gonna go into the whole history of it, but there's a lot of times where just like people saw that black people were getting too much, and they decided to rob, kill, and steal from them. Or that was two things that were the same thing: robbing and stealing. But yeah, basically they took everything from them and killed them.
So I mean, I guess it depends, right? So if it puts you in the same land spaces where you really weren't going to have any opportunity to be successful to begin with,
Yeah.
then they don't have anything to worry about. We can leave you alone. You're just not going to be very successful. But then that only lasts until we realize there's lithium there, and then eminent domain, and then we're going to take your land back.
Yeah, and that's
That's how the government works.
especially I remember there was like a couple of stories too where like there's groundwater where if you're on native lands you can't even dig so far into your ground to get groundwater. I'm just like all of a sudden like a certain amount of feet underground is then federal land again. I'm just like, first of all, this is all their land anyway. It's like what the fuck, like seriously. Anyway, sorry, whole different tangent. Maybe we'll do a thing about Native Americans, and Native people, and like how they're getting especially fucked to this day. It's crazy. Anyway, yeah, it's a whole different.
A lot of the tribes today have now kind of learned how to flip the script and take advantage of the rest of society a little too. So it could be a fun one.
Yeah, it will be a fun one because obviously they have they're using basically greed to get back at they're playing the white people game.
Yeah.
It's just like
Next thing you know, no, I'm not even gonna go.
Yeah, it's a different podcast. Sorry, we have to like do research. I don't want to sound flippant about it. So
Yeah.
all right, so I'll talk about civil rights. You go ahead.
Right, it's on you, I think.
No, it's on you. I just said the Civil Rights Act of.
You did. That's right. So let's see. Sticking to Johnson. Sorry, I'm trying to stick to it there. Man, I'm drawing blank. If you got another one, go.
I have a whole bunch. All right. So
Yeah.
the Economic Opportunity Act, which was in August 30th of 1964. Holy shit, we're at three major things that have been done in 1 year. It's amazing, isn't it? Anyway, he signed this, creating an Office of Economic Opportunity to begin the war on poverty. So once again, it's a trend here. He's trying to end poverty. He's trying to like seriously get to the issue of economic disparities in America, and he's passing laws that will end that. So it's going to be a running theme throughout probably this entire podcast.
So I think it's astounding, right, that these weren't executive orders, right?
No, because those are
These
not.
weren't. Yeah, these weren't things where he's going to write something up and pretend like something got done. This was really getting things put into law
Yep.
and made so that they're real and concrete and can't change until someone can go in and actually change the law, right? Because next president comes in, executive orders are all gone, I'm going to start new ones. That's insane, right? How much was able to be in that first year?
Yes, first year. Yeah, first year. These three, the 24th Amendment, Civil Rights Act, and the Economic Opportunity Act were all done in 1964, the year after he became president.
And we're not even talking about just laws. Sorry, hold on. Stipulate that. We're not talking about just laws. We're talking about 2 laws.
Yeah.
And a freaking constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
Yeah. And there's more. There's plenty more. So
we're just getting started.
We're just getting started. Like this, he wasn't fucking around. Like there's so many platitudes, especially today, with every single candidate that have they'll say things, but they won't do those things. But when Lyndon B. Johnson was given the reins, he was like, we're going. This is what we're doing. And this is like, he laid out what he wanted to do. And every single time he was pushing, Congress to do these, either amendments or, law changes, that's what he wanted. And, I don't understand why it shouldn't be that difficult. Obviously, today we have the filibuster. I don't know when the filibuster was actually created. I can't remember the actual date. Do you know offhand? Was it before 64?
To what I understand, it has always been a thing.
But it's rarely used.
It just really became an emphasized tool around Johnson's time. So
maybe this is
in his time, they started using it a lot.
He was getting too much shit done, y'all.
I mean, so even when he was in the Senate, it was there. So he found his ways through those things. And I was I'm trying to figure out how I wanted to talk about him, because for my stuff for him was a little different than I think. And it's harder to just capture pieces of it. It was presidents and things.
Yeah.
And that's a part of how he got those things done. So it's this idea that once he was in the Senate and he was the master of just getting stuff done through there, I think once he was then back in the presidency, not just the vice president, and actually had some kind of authority where he's I can do things, I can do things for you, and I can get things done for you, but I need you to vote this way. So he was really tall, for one. He was a big dude, and so they had this thing, it was called the Johnson treatment, where when he knew that he could probably get your vote with a certain little bit of convincing, he would do the handshake that pulls you in really, really close and gets all up in your face, and he's this big dude, and he's whispering and just making it really weird and uncomfortable, and would offer and cajole and eventually basically bribe, right? It's look, if you need something, we'll make sure that it happens, but I need you to vote this way on this thing, and do that for one until it's okay, that's the 5 that I needed. I'm not gonna worry about anybody else, and the vote goes and it passes, right?
Nice.
He was like that, and I think that's how he was still able to then make these kinds of things happen fast.
I think that's probably likely why the whole Vietnam War thing happened with the escalations. It's probably because of the deals that he made. Probably.
Possibly. I mean, and I think he was a Southerner. He was from Texas. He may have still been and that might have been something he kind of did believe in, right? He's we're doing something potentially again. I thought that all the time. A lot of times people make these decisions. They're doing it with good intentions, not necessarily realizing the long-term repercussions or the negative impacts that might happen. And I think he may not have had enough information to make a better decision, but also maybe he thought that he didn't necessarily have a problem with the idea of going to war. He's a Texan, right? He's yeah, we'll fight. We'll fight for this country. We will do those kinds of things, and maybe just didn't think of how it looked globally. Because he was more willing to accept it, this is fighting for something that he understood to be right, and that maybe didn't know the quagmire he got into.
Yeah, well, the whole communism versus capitalism thing is. I think we'll have to do a podcast on that eventually, on the Cold War and the whole philosophical things of communism versus capitalism. Because I think it's kind of lost on the newer generations of why are we so against communism? It's it's a good question. And I I think we laid out like slightly in other podcasts of like what communism actually is
Mhm.
and why it's not. It's never really been like seriously implemented. There's been like tries, but back then it was like a horrible scare to America because you had a huge force of Russia and China that were communist countries that had anti-American policies, and so if you saw it spreading, like what would you do to stop it? Because you don't want another country of any kind, because you already have these two major countries that have this philosophy that are against you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like if it's better for the country, like why do you give a fuck? Unless you think it's an imminent attack on America, then yeah, I guess. But I don't think that Vietnam was gonna pick up arms against America and like attack us. Like I don't.
Yeah. So the idea was Cold War stuff is weird, but the idea was that they would then become client states that then would have to kind of provide. They would be expecting to provide resources to the larger communist state that supported them.
Yeah.
That would provide them with military resources, would do these other things. Like whoever helped them, they have to then help them out afterwards. And so there was it was the proxy war thing. Like, yeah, we call it the Cold War, but it was just that the war was happening somewhere else.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of familiar, but
yeah, and it was just to me it was like one of those things to where I wish the UN, even to this day, that the UN was just like a more of an effective police force in the world. They're so.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to like sit down and like, hey, listen, if we're gonna be the police of the world, then we need to be the police of the world, and people that are the countries that are in the UN, you have a UN force that if a country's fucking up, then we get our forces together and we do something about it. Not just one country has a problem with this one country, and then they do something, and then maybe a couple of the UN people help them, but no, it needs to be a unified front. So,
yeah, the forces of the UN have to be strong enough to make people think twice about doing things that would be contrary to what's best for the global community in order for it to be effective. Have you seen? Oh gosh, I can't. I just lost the thing. It's a space sci-fi thing. Why can't I think of the name of it?
Space sci-fi thing. I know a lot of space sci-fi things.
But it's got where basically the Earth is managed by the UN. It's
Elysium?
right now on. It's right now on Amazon Prime. I can't think of the name.
Talking about Elysium? No, that's not the UN.
No. Oh my God, it's called the something. I'm gonna talk about it anyways. In it, yeah, the world is managed by the United Nations. They're the ones with the military and the space force that can go out to other planets.
Honestly, I think that's the way it should be. I think that at this point, America's kind of on borrowed time as far as like how long an empire can go. Because usually, I think it's like 300 years, right? It's usually like the main marker. Like usually it's 300 years or less, and most
300 to 500 depending on how big they were. So like Romans obviously a bit longer, but after that,
yeah, we're
200 to 300 to 500, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we're fastly approaching that number, and I think that we're seeing it now of like how far our government is trying to prop up financially all these institutions when we don't have to, and it's just like we're just hurting ourselves and like we're letting other nations get stronger when we could just work together and just make the world better, instead of just trying to ensure that certain people in America make more money.
More. Yeah.
It's really stupid. I think at this point we're at the tail end of what capitalism can do, only because the way that when I said before, like we never really had true communism in the world or true socialism in the world, we haven't really had true capitalism in America. Like look at every time like people talk about capitalism, the best product wins or whatever. But no, that's not how it works in America, because we just saw it like years ago where you have a company that's quote unquote too big, and if they take too many losses, then the US government will swoop in and steal our tax dollars and give it to these corporations. Like, is that fair? No. It's cheating. Like, they're literally stealing from us to make sure that our corporation survives. And we have people that are literally dying in the streets. And I'm not being dramatic. there are people that are dying in the streets because they're homeless and they don't have a job, and corporations are making trillions of dollars in profits. It's wrong.
Yeah. There may have only been one short period in American history where there was like pure capitalism. So from like 1776 to 1790, while it was in its infancy and not being managed, and there was no national bank. And then Hamilton makes the first national bank in 1790, and now it's not really because now it's being managed, right? It's being kind of like there are rules and regulations and guidelines and things. So for those few years, those 14 years, whatever, maybe, and probably not, right? There's probably still some state level management, some other things going on, just not federally managed. The states were still involved, so.
Yeah, this is where I'm going to get libertarian on y'all for a minute, even though I'm not a libertarian. But once we started getting into the war,
they won every once in a while.
Yeah. Once we started getting into like the whole war economy, that's where we started getting fucked. I mean, basically, because we decided to, because before World War I, it was only the rich that really paid taxes. That was it, and everything was fine. The things got done, roads got built, bridges got built, buildings got built. We were fine. Then all of a sudden we went to the World Wars, and then we just kept it rolling. Like they started taxing everybody to like for the war effort. I'm like, okay, that's understandable for a short period of time. Like you have to win a war. I get that. We need to like have additional resources from everybody. I get that. But why are we still in the war economy today? Like look at how much of our tax dollars go towards the Department of Defense. It's way more than anything else. And it's like, why? Like there's literally, to me, there's no logical reason of why we're giving up so much money to the Department of Defense. Even though I we need the military. I get that for defense. I got that. But we also don't need $1 trillion war fighting planes that you have to pay millions of dollars to repaint when it gets wet. Like this is serious waste. And we have all these other systems that are part of the Department of Defense that are they're antiquated. They're not what everybody else is going towards. Whoops. Hold on. Sorry, something come up on my screen. We're behind on times and we're spending way too much money on things that are just old and fucking dumb. So I think we could seriously streamline the DoD.
Yeah, talk about those like tens of millions of dollar aircraft, right? That don't talk to each other.
Yeah. It's dumb. Like I don't, and people are just like, oh yeah, we need to have a good military. I'm like, yes, we need to have a good military, but we don't need to spend half of our budget to have a good military. We really don't. And like go ahead.
There are definitely more efficient ways to do a lot of the things that we're doing, and I'm not going to say that there aren't people who are wanting to do that, because I'm obviously one of them. I'm doing everything I can within my sphere of influence to like affect things, but it's still only so much that can be done by the people who are interested in improving efficiencies and improving the quality while still trying to do that efficiently, right? So you've seen the triangle, like you can only pick two thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you can either be fast, it can either be good, or it can either be cheap. You can't have all three. You have to pick two. And so like I'm okay with it being less expensive, like a balancing of some, like make it less expensive, but it also still needs to be good. So then it's probably not going to be fast. So it might take us a little bit of time to get there, but we should have that be our goal, is to make it still good, but make it less expensive. So go ahead and take the time to do that work.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is hard, but it's also like there's just so much money wasted on just like basic fucking things in the military. Like I said, like once they started just like contracting out everything in the military, I'm just like, why? Like when I was overseas, working as a contractor, and I would go to like the bathroom, like we had all these like Sri Lankan nationals cleaning the bathrooms. And I'm just like, why? You have fucking PFCs in the military that can do this shit. But me as a contractor, I wouldn't mind cleaning the bathroom. Like I don't give a fuck. Like you're paying me a lot of money. Like, I don't care if you want me to clean my own bathroom. I don't care. But meanwhile, the Sri Lankan, first of all, is getting taken advantage of. They're being exploited because they're getting paid nothing. They literally take their passports when they get in country and they can't leave, and then they're charging the U.S. military probably hundreds of thousands of dollars for a single person to clean a bathroom or to do the laundry or to do whatever. When literally we could have done all that shit ourselves, and you literally can't do it. Like when I was in the VBC, I couldn't do my own laundry. Like I had to literally go to a laundry place to do my laundry. I'm like, why am I giving my laundry to a person when I can do my? It's not hard to do my own laundry, but you're forcing me to do it.
The taking away of the passports thing, like, yeah, that is not supposed to be allowed. So I don't know how
No.
that was happening.
Yeah,
That is definitely clearly against the whole lot of rules.
yeah. It's you go through these certain contracting companies, and it's just like it's a total shit show. You know,
And again, it's just because that's the rule, right? And people are supposed to be checking, things are going to slip through, and it's ridiculous that happened. I did not know about that, but
oh yeah, I
uh,
got a
not
bunch of
supposed to
bad
be.
stories.
What's
Yeah,
that?
I got a bunch of bad stories. But
Hmm.
let's get back to Lyndon B. Johnson, the best president.
Hmm.
All right, so I think I'm up next. No, wait. I think it's you. I talked about that.
I kind of tried to put something in. I'm honestly not ready with a list of like things that he did. More of like just his. It was the fact that he got so much done. The nature of the things he looked after. I wasn't ready with like a specific list of items, but also just the ability to actually have an agenda that is for the people, right?
Yeah.
And then actually be able to do it in a way that's not just the easy button of doing executive orders like they do these days, that can be wiped out the next president comes around, and isn't actually even a thing that's written anywhere that they're allowed to do. So for me, it was a combination of the impression that I got from his service in the Senate, and then so his service in the Senate, he worked so hard to get so many of these things passed that he worked himself nearly to death, had a heart attack at like 55,
I didn't know
and
that.
and like rearranged his life. He changed his diet. He started working out more. He like realized like I gotta take care of myself if I'm gonna be able to keep doing this, because he was just working really long nights. He stopped smoking. And he decided like this is still important stuff that I'm doing. I can't just be running myself to the bone and then dying and then not getting stuff done. Right? That was it. That was still the way he thought of it. It was like I have all these things that I want to get done, so I have to be healthy in order to get them done. So it's like that kind of drive, that kind of passion for improving, the lot of our society. Like how much better can I make this place that I live in? Just, I don't know, it inspires it out of me. And I like that of it. And don't feel, I don't know, like it's obviously not the best way to do a podcast, but I honestly like don't have a list.
No.
I don't have like this
No,
thing to go off of. It's just this feeling.
No, it's fine. Honestly, I think that on this topic, I feel like we reversed roles where I have like all the data, or like some data, and you're just like I have a feeling. But I like it though, because there were things you're talking about that I didn't know that happened. Like I didn't know he had a heart attack.
Yeah.
I didn't know they quit smoking. So it's excellent. Like I'm still learning.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
And like it's balanced now. Now we've switched roles.
Is that also an exchange? I'm just saying. We did the thing. We did the thing. All right, but unfortunately, I got a list. I'm just saying.
Let's see that list.
Yeah. So I'll go back to, let's see. In 65, he was calling for voting legislation, and he addressed Congress to introduce voting rights legislation. Basically, he gave a very long speech that called on white Americans to make the cause for African Americans their cause too. He's basically trying to say, hey, like you have other Americans that are here that need your help, that are Americans as well, and let's help them elevate to like your level. They need to be able to vote along with all of you, and you don't see things like that anymore with like a president. Really, I mean,
So there's a possible, right, totally cynical devil's advocate argument here too, though, where I talked about it before, and when he's in the Senate, like he's the master of the math of the vote, right?
Yeah.
Where he could say like, if I make sure that they have the like rights to the vote, remove all this other stuff, and then I advocate that everybody continues to like, I'm going to look like I'm going to get that group to vote for me, right?
Yeah.
There's that cynical side of it, and I've seen those stories and those arguments of it, but on the surface, and it would be super easy in today's media to spin that, right?
Yeah.
But if you know his story and what what his goals were and the progression of those things, it was a natural progression of the story. It wasn't this sudden new thing to get more votes to help make sure that my new agenda has a voting body to support it. It wasn't that, but it certainly could look like it, because when you were explaining that thing, I was like, man, I could have spun what he did so easy. Like,
No, I'm glad you said that, because I like the devil's advocate thing.
yeah,
Honestly, I don't mind at all. The thing is though, like if you think about it, like for me, it's like he would be advocating for maybe 8% of the vote. You know what I mean? So that's what I would come back to somebody that would say something like that. It's like, yeah, would you really spend so much time like fighting years of your life trying to get maybe 8% of the American vote? Probably not.
no, and you got to think too. So he's from Texas,
Yeah.
in a southern state.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose a big part of your
Yeah.
natural voting block by advocating for that kind of stuff potentially.
Yeah. He likely would have lost more than he would have gained.
Yeah,
So
and so it's like, if he's the master of the math, and you think about that part of it, like he wouldn't have done it unless it was important, and if he felt like I still got this in the bag for the next election, because I'm doing good things, and there are enough people who will care.
and he still got elected. I'm just saying.
He still got elected again afterwards, because this was what year you said?
This was 65. I think he got reelected in 68, I think. I could have my dates wrong.
Nope. Yeah, that seems off. Because 61, I think, was when the two of them got elected together. He took it over in 63 or 60, yeah. What was it? 1962, right? Johnson. I'm not looking at the right kind of chart.
So was it after he got... Okay, keep looking it up. I'll just say, like, the major things that he got... When he first started going, like, his whole, like, role of, like, getting shit done was in 64.
Yeah. So 63 was when he took it over.
Okay.
I think it was 61 when Kennedy was elected. So it would have been 61 through 65. So in 65, we got probably right after that, right?
Yeah. So these are still things that, like, he's definitely rolling. The bowling ball's already going down. So people understood what the fuck he was all about. And he still got elected, on very controversial terms. And I think he ran against Nixon the first time he got elected, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Nixon was super popular too.
Yeah, and he was also
really, really popular.
Pretty fucking racist. I'm just saying.
and it was originally going to be Nixon who was going to be freaking Kennedy's running mate. But then, because they were still doing a lot of weird, like, cross boundaries partnerships to run for president at the time, like making up some weird partnerships. I think, anyways, I could be wrong on that. Now I'm thinking about it, but I know that there was some competition for the running mate, and it might not have been between Johnson and Nixon. I have to look back at it, but because I feel like they were actually still. Let me go back to my list. I feel like they were still the same party.
Was he a Democrat? No. Yeah, I was gonna say, because
Johnson was Democrat, Nixon was Republican.
Yeah, he's definitely a Republican.
So I don't know. That's what it was. They were battling it out in the Senate for votes and stuff. I was like, I know there was this huge conflict between the two of them, and it was in the Senate while they were both in the Senate. Sorry.
Okay. All good. All right. The next one, because I guess I got the list. Unless you have something to... Well, you already added. You have anything else to say about that one?
Nope, not right now.
All right. So, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which he signed in 1965, is an act that emphasizes equal access to education, aiming to shortening the achievement gaps between students and providing federal funding to schools, especially to impoverished communities and families. So obviously that didn't. Even though I'm saying that, it was passed, but to me it wasn't very effective because there's still way too many schools in impoverished communities that do not get proper funding. To me, one of the things that I would do if I was president, I'm sorry, if I was dictator, fuck it, because I didn't need to be dictator to get shit done, especially in today's like filibustery world, is to actually properly fund every single school district at the same level. Like it bothers me that we don't provide federal credits to local schools and colleges to make up the gap because the main argument is, oh well, if you're in a poor community, they have they don't have as many taxes as like a affluent community. Okay, well, federal government should be able to come in and make up the difference, and to make it so that every single child should have the same basic education as everybody else. Then we need to set a standard, and then keep that standard in every single community, and that's not happening today.
Yeah, I have to imagine. So this is, talking about basic federal involvement, like probably, and it has to be, from what I'm thinking too. This has to be like the earliest national level stuff. So
Yeah.
part of the story goes that Johnson's ability to even just get out of that podunk stuff that he had going on was access to public education in Texas. Texas had state level paid for public education for everybody, and not every state at the time did. And so I think this was Johnson saying, like, look, the only way I was even able to do this was because I got some schooling. And so let's make sure everybody, especially the people I'm realizing, right, and have realized throughout my life, need it more than anybody, have the same access that I did. And I wonder if this being in my head, the first, like, earliest federal level, like, discussion on it, probably not, and maybe it was during his term, but I don't think it was. This would have led to the Department of Education. Like, this probably in the next president's term, they're like, hey, we have this thing, we need something to manage it, and the Department of Education would probably be established after that. Once they're like, we need something to kind of manage this stuff. And then, we don't know how that went.
Yeah, it needs to be fixed. Honestly, it needs to become an amendment, like an actual like learning amendment, or equal access to education amendment, something like that. It needs to be done because at this point we're doing a huge disservice to people because like President Trump and other presidents have pushed this whole, what do they call it, school choice or whatever.
Yeah, vouchers.
Yeah, or where you can just ship off your kid to some other school to get a better education. I'm like, so first of all, you're literally admitting that where a child lives has shitty education. So instead of fixing the education where they're closest to, you want to ship them to some other place, and you're just going to assume that the person, like the family, can afford to ship their kids to some other school in some other affluent community, and that they're going to be accepted there in the affluent community because they're going to probably be with people that are not in their same economic status, and you're just okay with that.
Even just those transportation costs, and how do you handle childcare, and like how do you deal with the time differences? We're like not far from where we have to deal with the same problem, like because of just the distance and what we got going on. But that little bit of a problem solving thing is a pain in the butt. And when you're dealing with scarcity versus abundance, like we have time and money space to figure out the solutions to those problems. Not everybody does. Not everybody can take the time to go, how do I deal with where the children will be after school? If they get out at 3 and I don't get out of work until 5, what do I do with them at that time?
Yep.
Like, not everybody has room to figure that shit out.
Yeah, it's people that have these half thoughts. Where they're just like, oh, it sounds good, but they put no other thought into it. It just it sounds good. Because it only sounds good because your family doesn't have to go through anything like that. Like my daughter, she goes to school 15 miles away at a private school. She's going to, pre-K. She goes to a Montessori school.
Nice.
But, not everybody can afford that because it's expensive. It's expensive. And when she starts going to, kindergarten and elementary school, like the closest elementary school to me, I don't want her to go to. We probably have to put her in private school.
So you mentioned for higher education stuff like community colleges and things, he did also do a second education thing, also still in 1965. So like in potentially during that first term, and he did do like a Higher Education Act,
Yeah.
which was kind of started the federal funding for um, college level stuff. I can't think of the FAFSA, right? So the being able to do a federal grant, federal loans, and other things to go to college. So there was some systems created to start looking at higher education as well, not just the entry level education thing. So
My God, you know what I just realized as we're talking about this? The guy who asked for this podcast, he's Scottish. And he's
yeah,
probably just like, how fucked up is America right now? Because I'm pretty sure, like, where he lives, these are not issues. Like, the education stuff is not an issue. At least the
right.
education stuff is not an issue there. And this is where it comes down to, like, the amount of false bravado that America has of, like, how good we are at everything. We're not good at everything. And if Dirty Stu, if you're listening to this podcast, let me know what you think about what we just laid out about our education system. So
Yeah, yeah, I'd definitely be interested if you got comments on like, especially the education system stuff, since we just brought it up and this is where we're talking about it. But how it's different? Is that a normal thing? Is there concerns over which school? Granted, like Scotland's a little bit smaller, so the idea of like needing to go to the next town over for a school is not probably as far. We're talking about crossing towns potentially that are nearly the size of Scotland. Not really.
Scotland's, I mean, it's not that small, but
No, it's
yeah,
not that
it
small.
is
But
pretty. It's smaller than America, obviously, and California. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, it's still a problem though. Like we have to travel to get your kid a better education. I'm wondering if that's like even an issue in Scotland. So I don't think it is because I think it's either Scotland or maybe I think it's Scotland where they have ranked choice voting. Pretty sure it's Scotland. Might be Ireland. Stu, I'm sorry if it's Ireland. Um, like because they're like it's way ahead of like I think that every single if you're gonna vote on something it should be ranked choice.
yeah,
In
at
my
least
opinion.
that's a quick way to get at a problem that could be solved a couple of ways, but it's definitely a quick and easy way to make it, and it makes sense to most people, I think, without doing some of the other. I think we talked parliamentary systems and some other stuff that I talked about. But so I am reading something here. So according to this, Scotland provides free education to all children living in Scotland and have done so since as early as the 17th century. Scotland schools operate on a curriculum for excellence, which provides knowledge, skills, and attributes for learning and life to all nursery, primary, and secondary schooling between the ages of 3 and 18.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
sounds similar to like a public school system for us for basically elementary school through high school.
but
Um,
but from the age of 3.
yeah, I mean, and
That's
again, not
pre-K.
all preschool age for us would be open to everyone.
Yeah,
There's some access, but
well,
not to
because
everybody.
there's no public pre-K as far as I'm aware.
There's some that, yeah,
Is
there's
there?
some.
There's some. Okay, well, it's not national, right? I mean,
No, I mean, I think so. There's funding nationally, but not all schools have access. So, like, if your school districts want to start pre-K programs, they can, and they can seek national funding for it, but it's up to the school district.
okay, yeah, because yeah, we were
Yeah,
talking about with Riley, our 4-year-old. We're just like, we need to get her, into schools and like get social interaction and learn stuff. And yeah, we ended up
most
going
of
with Montessori, but like it wasn't a public option. Like that for where we live didn't exist really. So
yeah, I think a lot of societies, I'll say within the United States, so regional, city-based stuff, a lot of groups don't consider any education prior to kindergarten at all. Like not
yeah,
even at home. There's no like need for that. That's when school starts. Which I mean, there's a school of thought there, right? Let them just not have to worry about that stuff. But that puts a lot on a kindergarten teacher.
yeah. Once they get in, because they don't know, like what does this kid actually know? Um,
Nothing.
and it's just
So,
it's weird to me. Like if you can get your kids, if you can teach your kids yourself,
yeah.
obviously do that. We were, getting, you know, we taught Riley sign language. That was the first language that she understood was sign language. To be honest with you, and
If they can do it quicker, then you can actually make all of the weird things that your mouth and throat need to do to talk.
yeah, that's why we did it because Obviously, she couldn't talk, but she can use her hands, so you communicate with sign language as we were talking. She didn't understand English and sign language.
Yeah.
But there was like all these things that you can do with your kids, but you can only go so far. You only have so much time if you have a career. If you're not a stay-at-home, parent, then you can't be there and dedicate all your time to teaching your kid all these things. And even if you can, your kid is still going to miss out on social interactions with other kids their age.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're going to miss out on. And the fact that America, on a national level, has just like, well, just let it fall through the cracks. It's like, it's wrong to me. Like we need to have like more funding on that level from like just educating kids from like toddler up, but we just don't find that important.
And I think this goes to the like workplace childcare discussion almost, and how some companies do it and realize that they actually have a hell of a lot better. Um, because bottom line is always kind of thing, right? You have to talk about when you talk about any of these programs. But when you talk about taking care of the children of the people who work for you, if you make it so that that family is a part of your organization's family,
Yeah.
I could see immediately looking at 3. I was like, wait, so at 3 years old, there's a Scotland school that's a public school that everybody has access to, which means compared to us, that the parents go back to work 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
Just public school system stuff.
Yeah.
Not even additional options that probably still exist at lots of workplaces in Scotland and here, right? So if you're having to get the perfect job and they have childcare programs taken care of as a part of your benefits at work, you can come back to work as soon as you're comfortable doing so. That makes you a more productive member of that organization. Like there's value there. There's value there.
And I'm pretty sure in Scotland, you have guaranteed national time off when you have a kid. We don't have that in America. There's no federal anything that says that. Yeah, there's no requirement that says that you need to take X amount of time off. It's fucked up. and it's even worse for dads.
The game changer. Yeah, you definitely don't get it. I think so. Right now, they probably didn't have this at all when you were in. So, dads get 10 days now.
10 whole days.
Yeah.
Wow.
3.
Yeah.
You can take more leave if you want, but
yeah, more of your own time. It's fucking.
And then they changed the PFT stuff just recently too. It was 6 months where like you need to be back to physically fit afterwards, no matter what, right? But then so I think it's changed to a year available. But I mean, if you're some people, it's because the problem is that's not accounting for the fact that people's bodies respond differently, and so.
Well, are you talking about females or both males and females?
For females.
Okay, I was gonna say, yeah.
So after giving birth to their child, like, so when I was in Okinawa in 2004 or 5 or whatever, there was a female Marine that I would only ever see each day when I would go on my lunchtime run around the flight line in one direction, and she was running in the opposite direction. Right, I'm going that way from my work to go back, and then just happen to be that we always run the opposite way. So 2, 3, 4 times a week, see each other, go past each other. I start realizing, I'm like, this lady's very pregnant. Like, getting bigger as over the course of the 6 months we were doing this. And then suddenly, not there. I was like, oh, maybe had the baby. And then like a week later, it was back. I was like, what the hell? You're just back running. But because she just was consistent on it, that was for her body. That was fine. But it shouldn't be on us to tell her that she has to. So, there's like a realistic timeline where like after a year, you should be. I say shouldn't, but again, apparently there were studies that made them want to make this change to extend it to a year.
I think that's
because it's more reasonable to say that's definitely a realistic time to say you should be able to come back.
Yeah, I think if you have a kid I married a Marine. She's my ex-wife. I don't like her, but I think that it's unrealistic for people to get back into Marine shape in that amount of time, especially when you're trying to take care of a kid. Unless you have like a decent partner that is willing to like help you out and like understand that, hey, your body has changed, your hips have changed, like you need to grapple with sudden weight gain over the past 9 months, and then atrophy in your muscles, and then you have to like get back into shape. Like if your partner doesn't get that, then you're kind of fucked. And especially if they're like women take care of baby, men take care of other things. You're kind of fucked. So yeah, I'm glad the Marine Corps does that, but also I think that men need to understand that too. Like in general, that also help the Marine Corps is that you need to understand that like they just gave birth to a fucking human being, and they need time for their body to readapt to like the new changes, and it's not easy. Like no man can possibly understand what it's like to give birth and to like wreck part of your body. Possibly not every woman gets wrecked from that, but it's still no matter what any even the healthiest fucking chick on the planet has a baby, you're still gonna have some downtime. Like there's still things that need to get readjusted to like your new body because your body's gonna change after this happens, and that shouldn't be controversial to say. And yeah, you need time for that. And I think that if the Marine Corps was accounting for only 6 months, then yeah, that's pretty fucked.
Yeah, that's the way it had been for forever, as far as I know. And again, it's forever me and you the whole time we've been a part of this organization. So, but yeah, to change it to say that's important. But I think you were kind of going towards the point too, where the best way to help support I don't know the best way, but an important way to support that too is realize that that's happening on not the Marine giving birth as well. And if my wife is dealing with that, the best way to support her is for me to be there and help take some of that weight off so she can deal with that recovery. And 10 days isn't necessarily enough.
No, yeah, that's what the thing that I think a lot of women don't get. So I just kind of shitted on a little bit on dudes for possibly not being there if you're there for your significant other and like sharing the actual parenting. Good on you. That's what you should do.
Yeah.
But this is where it comes down to like what some women don't understand is that men, when it comes to like having kids, we don't get enough time off. So from the get go, right when we have kids, we don't get as much time off as you do. And I think it's terrible because we don't. Oh shit! I was about to get emotional. All right, only because it's happened to me. It's just like you don't get as much time as you want to with your kids, and you don't get, and it's time that you need with your kids to like form an actual, bond with your children at a young age. And at least the Marine Corps, when I was in, didn't really seem to give a fuck about that. They're just like, you're gonna come back and you didn't have a kid, so why do you need time off? And it's just like, dude, like this is my child. Like you're gonna take me away from my child? If there's a need for it, like yeah, I get it. But if we're in garrison, even if we're not in garrison, fuck that. Fuck that. Even if you're overseas in war or whatever, you need to take some fucking time off to spend time with your kids. Because this is what happened to me. All right, my then wife, she got pregnant shortly before I went on the MEU, and so I was on the MEU and I had a chance to come back early because I wanted to be there for my oldest daughter now being born, and some fucking first lieutenant took my spot to fly back from Australia to the United States, and he had older kids, and I was just like, "This is my first kid. Like, are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah, just took my spot. They didn't care," and it's like it's things like that. That's like the tearing down of the American father that I think that most people don't really seem to understand. They don't give a shit, and they wonder why there's like absentee fathers and shit like that. It's because like you're kind of incentivized to do that in most of American society, to not be there because we have, through whatever policies, we have less time to be there with our kids.
Yeah, we're like at least taught that that's the norm. So for Addison, I was in Afghanistan when she was born,
Jesus, man. Yeah.
and like so she was due in August, but then Cindy messaged me like, I just went to the doctor today, and you got like 4 days. You need to hear now. I'm like,
it's impossible.
Okay.
Yeah.
She went to the doctor. They're like, you can do these exercises, drink this, rest like this, walk here or there at these times, and you might make it 4 days. Right? And so she's like, you need to hurry up. So I give my boss, I'm like, hey, I know I was supposed to go on our next month for my baby, but she's gonna have a baby like now. I need to go now if that's okay. And they're like, go pack your shit. Go. Get the hell out of here. So they were cool about it. We adjusted. We just moved the dates around. So I go and I like pack up everything and I go down to the ADAG and I'm sitting there waiting. And it's like 2 hours later. I'm like, hey, where's this helicopter? He's like, oh yeah, that one didn't end up coming this time. It'll be another one for like 4 more hours. I'm like, okay, I'll leave my stuff here. I'm gonna take a nap and I'm coming right back. So I come back, get on that helicopter. So it's like maybe 7 hours later. I'm on Leatherneck, and like I'm like, well, and I land there. So it's maybe what 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Like, hey, when's this flight that's taking me to I think I went into Kuwait. When's the flight takes me to Kuwait? They're like midnight.
Yeah, it's hard to that.
Forever. I'm like, this sucks. It's like, okay, well, I got like forever now, so I might as well run over and check on the internet and see if I can call. Because remember, back then, like, you had to go to a place.
Yeah.
So I'm like, go and check it, and there's already like information on Facebook from her mom, like, oh, Addison's weight was this, and I was like, yeah. You didn't even make it like 1 day, let alone 4 days. But so I get back. She'd already had her, but I did get to spend those 15 days, but then I had to go back to Afghanistan.
Yeah. So you get 15 days that she'll probably likely not remember. You know?
I mean, it was good that I was there because she had a C-section, so she definitely needed some help.
Yeah.
Addison had to go back in. She like got jaundice and a bunch of stuff too. So yeah, it was good to have been there, and it was good to have had more than the 10 days I would have gotten if we were in garrison. But it still never feels like enough.
Yeah, I think that there's like, we need to do a podcast on like fatherhood.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because like, I mean,
we went down this education rabbit hole towards being dads.
No, it's fine because these are still policies, right? They're still policies.
It's true. It is. Yeah, and it might not be national, federal level. We're talking about social contracts too, right? Just how we deal with each other. And you talked about being absentee fathers, and like my dad was never there. And how long have we standardized this idea in our society that that's okay, right?
Yep.
And whether you are like maybe my mom and dad didn't get along, that doesn't make it okay for him to have not been there for me.
Yeah, that's totally true. Like I think for me, people that are absentee fathers for no reason, there are some reasons why you would be an absentee father, like if you went to jail or some shit like that. Like I get that. Like it's very difficult to fucking father your kid from jail.
Standardize that too, right?
Yeah, that's another whole other thing. I'm not gonna get into that. If somebody's blacklisted on this, you get it. Just saying.
Well, we're gonna get there when we get to the worst president, weren't we? I thought you talked about that.
What's up?
I thought we were gonna get there when we talk about your worst president.
Oh yeah, it's just amazing to me, like how much that our society doesn't focus on the issues of men and fathers especially, and then just like shit talk us like on consistently. But also at the same time, like one of the main reasons why, like, well, me and you are like on really good, even though we never met in real life, not yet anyway, is that to me you're a great dad, and I can't deal with people that are not good dads. Like that's like immediately I'll cut you off if you have a kid and you're a piece of shit dad, like you're a piece of shit mom. Yeah. We're fucking done. Like I can't deal with you, like at all.
And that's what made me realize that kind of is the definition, right? You're like, to you said that I'm a good dad. I said I try, but like that's the definition, right? Just
we all try.
None of us know what we're doing.
No.
But if you're there and you're trying, and I'm outside and I'm breaking stuff because we're trying to make this potato gun, make rockets launch. Like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm making stuff up as we go.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I think most dads do that. I think there's some dads that are just like they don't put in the effort and for whatever reason, and the ones that don't put in the effort because they don't. If you're a quote unquote free person in America and you're not there for your kids, then you're a piece of shit in my mind, and you need to put in the effort to be there for your kids. And I have a difficult relationship with my oldest daughter. It's not terrible, but it definitely needs some working on, and I'm working on it. Like I'm trying to like work through it. It's difficult to work through when your kids become adults, and I think that you're going through that now, Papa Bear. Like you have a kid that's in college, and it's a little different Like the relationship gets a little different because it's like I don't want to tell you what to do, but I'm gonna give you suggestions. But if you fuck up, like it's like I don't want to really deal with you not understanding like the suggestions. Like if you want me to like tell you what to do, then then it's different. You know what I mean? Like then we're no longer you're a kid again. I want to treat you like an adult because you're supposed to be an adult. You know, so I'll give you some leeway, but at the same time, like if you fuck up, there's consequences.
And it's little stuff. It's always little stuff too.
Yeah.
It's like come in this morning, you can tell that some plastic tub of green beans was heated up and eaten at some weird random hour last night, but then just left sitting next to to be cleaned up by someone else. Like, how hard would that have been to rinse that out and put in the dishwasher?
Yeah.
Like, that's an adult move, right? Just don't leave a mess for yourself later to clean up. Just pick up little things as you go. That's an adult move. Like, learn that one, bro. Come on.
Yeah. And I get it. It's hard to learn. I mean, we've all been that age. You know what the fuck's going on, but you think you do, but you don't.
This is, again, keep sidebar. So laundry has been one, right? Laundry.
Oh, Jesus.
Same thing. So I've done two things. I've started doing two things. When laundry comes out of the dryer, which is the laundry room's like attached to the hallway, he has to walk past the laundry room from his room to the rest of the house. The baskets go in the hallway. Like, you have to walk past the laundry. I know you see that laundry that needs to be folded every day when you come out, and you don't fold any of it. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
So now it's like I'll fold the rest of it and just leave the stuff in those baskets sitting in the hallway. You can fold your own clothes. At least at a minimum, you would be expected to do that on your own in a dorm room.
Wait, does he wash his own clothes?
Because it's just one sorting bin. Like, I don't have time to wait for what day he wants to. That's too much of an inconvenience for me, and I'm not going to do that. But then it's not hard for me to fold around his clothes and say, you can fold the rest of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, I get that. Yeah,
I'm not going to inconvenience myself for that lesson. He'll get enough of it when he does his own laundry at the dorm room, but I can definitely make you fold your own at least if you're not going to help fold the rest of it.
Nice.
He does. Like, he has his moments, his flashes, like his flashes of inspiration, or whatever you want to call it. But it's not consistent. And it's frustrating.
It takes time to learn.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why you have to give them leeway to fuck up, and then to pull them back every now and again. They might get mad about it, but it's like, hey, listen, this is the way shit's gonna be. Like, if you're living on your own and you don't do your laundry, you're gonna have a problem. Yeah. You know what I mean?
You have no clean clothes, or you stink.
Yeah, and you're gonna be the stinky person at work, you know, or at school or wherever, you know. So, yeah, like I totally get it. All right. Let's go on to the next one, which I didn't know he did this. Well, I didn't know he passed this, or his administration passed this. Is Medicare and Medicaid. That started in 1965, and he signed that into law, or into whatever. And yeah, I didn't know that he started that whole thing. That's like probably one of the most socialist things, if you want to say socialism. It's one of the most socialist things in America, even though I don't really consider it socialist, but.
So, I'm trying to remember something about this. So, this is the period where the Democrats changed, right? Democrats changed from being Southern Democrats specifically, or Northern Democrats, to finally actually kind of becoming unified on this front, this social reform front, right? Because he was a Southern Democrat and was different than the other Southern Democrats. Again, there were these two kind of factions within the Democratic Party at the time, and definitely he pulled the Southern Democrats into this group, realizing, and I think through convincing them, like, this is better for our party in order to be more relevant and more capable. He's convincing these people who have been resisting this stuff for all these years. But he did do, according to this, right? This was the words he used on it, that went in hand as he was passing the healthcare reform stuff, was also a war on poverty.
Yeah.
But you know how I feel about saying a war on something.
War on anything. It's stupid. I get that. But
like, don't use that word.
Yeah. Because I don't people
war.
I talk about it all the time too. It's like the war on whatever. It's like it's not a war. Like, please stop it. I'm with you on that. But I mean, honestly, if it was considered a war, he did a lot of effective things I'll leave it at that. A lot of things that were durable and have not been reversed. And when somebody talks about, oh, well, I don't want universal health care, but it's like, well, you already have Medicare and Medicaid. Like, why don't we just expand that and have some actual power into what
Yeah.
these insurance companies are charging you for your insurance? Because, I mean, I have, quote unquote Cadillac plans for my insurances, and they're fucking expensive, and I still have like high deductibles, and I still get gigantic bills. I still have to like fight for things that are covered, and it's ridiculous. Like, why am I doing these things? I would much rather people use my tax dollars to make it universal, and then to not to deal with the fucking bullshit anymore. Where like I'm paying thousands of dollars a year, where I still have to fight for what I already paid for. It's ridiculous.
So he started Head Start as a part of this war on poverty.
Nice.
So he, along with those other education things, did start a program at the national level that gets ahead of kindergarten. So yeah, the whole Head Start program was started by him too. Like
that was on my
I
list.
was like, you
Yeah.
talking about. I was like, what? Children's Television Workshop,
Yeah.
all part of the same programs. I'm like, good God, man.
How effective was this dude? One dude, and we're not at the end of the list yet. I'm just saying,
No.
one guy.
This article I'm looking at, talking about starting the Head Start stuff. Lady Bird Johnson is in a Head Start class in 1966. So within a year, not only like passed legislation to say a thing needs to happen, one fucking year later, that shit's already actually happening. Like kids are in classrooms. Like we pass a law and then don't see actual effects for 5-6 years.
Yeah, I mean, the Affordable Health Care Act was sort of effective, but they're already obviously they've been trying to repeal it for a long time. They repealed sort of part of it, but all the things that we've said have been durable, either amendments or other sorts of legislature that are still around to today. And most presidencies, if they get one thing that's good anyway, one thing passed, they're considered successful.
Successful, yep. That's crazy. Sorry, so that I thought that was insane. I was like, man, Head Start. He did start an early education program
Yeah,
too.
and it's something that kids should be taught, should be educated early. Not what they should be taught. That's a different conversation. But it's you need to have kids be able to get into a school early on. It helps both the child and the parents because the parents can then go back to work and keep producing. So it helps the kid learn basic skills earlier on in their life and actually get the beyond learning skills as far as like normal like skills like working and shit like that, and mathematics and educate and English and all other things, but also like social skills, like having your actual child learn how to get along with other children.
Yeah.
Super important.
Can I again just like gush about this freaking wizard? So how do you think he got Medicare like and that stuff passed? So he got freaking Truman. Like he got Truman involved.
Nice.
He was like, get former President Truman. Hey, let's get these people these big names. Let's get people campaigning for us for it. And then suddenly stuff starts happening. It's like God. He's like, let me get some other people to help talk about this too. Guy is a genius.
That's pretty dope. Yeah, he was the dude. And like most
Pretty
people, if you talk about him on the street, he said, "Hey, do you know who Lyndon B. Johnson was?" No idea.
No
idea. All right. Also in 1965, because he keeps the ball rolling, the Voter Rights Act becomes law. So it's where people have equal access to voting. So that's when that actually becomes a law. So I think I said previously, there was an act, the 24th Amendment happened in 1964, the year prior, abolishing poll taxes. But then he also did the Voting Act that gave equal access to voting to everybody. So, and that's having a voice in your own nation is extremely important.
I mean, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah. Hopefully, I was gonna say there's probably not much to say about that, but something else.
Other than right, not necessarily on every single topic. We don't need us all trying to chime in to decide how to, do the basic things that don't, and it shouldn't be only based on that, right? Because we talk about it's a balancing thing, and we both said a couple times like I don't necessarily trust everybody to make these decisions for us. Um, so it's good to have a voice. It's definitely not something that's okay to say these people don't get a say at all. Um, shoot, I kind of got to take that back, don't I?
What do
Because
you
I
mean?
also have the whole resident citizen concept.
Oh, yeah. Well, it also comes to like so the resident citizen concept, and also like the educated electorate or
Yeah,
elected person. Yeah, I think that's hand in hand. So if you want to have like the citizenry to separate them out between like citizen and resident, then you also really need to have who can be actually elected as an official.
yeah, agreed. And it has to be from that. And I think that it's not about the problem is that I could see that limiting it, right? We talk about needing to have free access to the ability to participate in your government. And I'm not saying anybody couldn't get into one of those positions and do their 2 years of service to their society and their community, but like we know how systems work, right? Best of intentions. We build this thing, and then suddenly, oh yeah, none of these organizations seem to be hiring very many people of color. Like
Yeah.
here we are again, and like we're keeping them from being able to vote by just not letting them get these jobs that allow them to then become citizens, and just suddenly, the system gets corrupted in that way. I see that happening, unless
No, I mean it's
somehow
amazing.
prevent it.
It's amazingly easy to do, especially in America, where like you don't understand like that you have a bias that you don't really seem to see like in yourself. It's just like you're just used to seeing you used to certain people that look a certain way. You have an expectation of them to have a certain education level or a certain comprehension or whatever. And if that's what you're
You can
going
see.
into for everything, you might not get it, but it's there. So
Yeah, so I guess in general, yes, people should have a voice and a vote. Um, but I also think like within the government structure that has to be balanced out. Is really where I was trying to go with that. How we get to the House and citizen versus resident things. We've talked about it before, so maybe more detail there. But yeah, I do think that it's important, but I think that there has to be a balance, and not having it be like you're just kept out, right?
yeah,
But how once everybody's brought in, how we manage that discussion, it has to be something that's talked about.
yeah. Sorry, there's a whole other podcast that we had about the
Yeah,
citizens
sorry.
versus resident thing. So if y'all are interested in what we're
Go
talking
back.
about, there's just go back on the first season. I forget what the actual name of the podcast, but there's one about where we talk about citizens versus residents. I think it's
I
like
think we call it Starship Trooper theory or something.
something like that. Yeah, because it's just like Starship Troopers. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and the last one on my list, it's the 25th Amendment, and it was in 1967, and it had new laws on the succession, on the death or incapacitation of the president, which came up actually last year. We brought up a whole
Yeah,
bunch of times last year.
it was discussed for
Yeah.
sure.
So when then President Trump, uh, came down with COVID, people were like, we need to enact the 20th Amendment. And actually, even before and even after he was okay with COVID, people were still saying 25th Amendment because they thought him as being incompetent, which I believe. And if he was too sick to serve his term as president, then the 25th Amendment could have been enacted to make, God damn it, I see his face. The guy who doesn't like mutants. Who was the vice president last year?
Oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah, I try to expunge like all that shit out of my mind.
drawing a blank right now. Why can't you think
Yeah,
of his name?
I can't
Are
remember
you
his
looking
name
it up
right
already?
now.
Yeah,
No, I'm not getting ahead of you. Go ahead and look it up, and I'll just keep bullshitting. But anyway, Mike Pence. There we go.
yeah.
Mike Pence was the guy.
Yeah.
I said the anti-mutant guy, but I'm just saying, go watch the old the 1990s X-Men shows, or even the comics when they went to Genosha. He looks like a guy that would put mutants in Genosha. I'm just saying.
Didn't that character have like thick, like BC type glasses?
I think he did, but
Yeah.
still seems like that guy. But yeah, people were trying to get Mike Pence as if it would be any better than President Trump.
Right.
But yeah, they're just trying to get him out of office as soon as possible. But yeah, this is where it came from. This is what it was. If he's incapacitated or unable or died or unable to, carry on his presidency, then we had an amendment to pass it on to somebody else, the vice president or somebody else.
And I think so. I mean, it's kind of obvious if we look at the history for him, why this became a topic. Like, I'm sure they were talking about it, right? Hey, Kennedy just died. It's pretty clear. That's straightforward. Like, vice president's in charge. That stuff was outlined there. So someone had to have been like, well, what about this? What if this? What if it was this instead? And so I was like, maybe we need to clarify this thing because it's not clear in those situations. Like, what if Johnson? In that case, like, what if Johnson had died? Because prior to that amendment,
Yeah.
they didn't know. They didn't know what would happen next. Like, what's the next in line for succession for the presidency? And they had no idea at that point.
Doesn't it? Hold on, real quick. Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't it go to the Speaker of the House?
Yeah.
Which is weird because the Senate is above the House, supposed to be, right?
Yeah, but so the only standalone person or like who is anything like stand like singular or standalone in the Senate is the president pro
Vice
tem,
president. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
which is the vice president.
Yeah.
So you've already lost that person.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
So you go then to who's the next like kind of like front person because each body has that front person. So then it's the Speaker of the House because they do generally get more publicity than anybody else in the Senate alone, but just barely. And then it goes back to the Senate after that. Like it would be then someone in the Senate.
Interesting. So yeah, that's if y'all didn't know about government, we went through a lot of government shit on this one. This is another educational one. They all should be, right? All the ones that we do, we try to educate people.
Yeah. So I have one last one for Johnson.
Go ahead.
Space, man, space. So while Kennedy like set the goal, right? He died before he got to do any of it. It had to be Johnson that actually brought it all and pushed it all through and made it actually happen so that
What just happened?
we ended up landing on the moon, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, best president ever. Even though, even the Vietnam stuff, still the best president.
pretty clear cut. If you look at like actually making positive change, and a lot of it that sticks, right? Positive change that is still in effect. So,
all right,
pretty amazing.
So we're gonna go to the worst now.
We can, yeah. So let me see. The show I was talking about before is called The Expanse.
Yes, The Expanse is a great show. I actually had one of the actors on my other podcast.
Yeah, and I knew you knew it, and I knew it. I just could not think of the name. But yeah, obviously in it, right? The UN has become the organizational body for the planet because now there is planet-based conflicts between us and them, so they're able to do that, right? Yeah. It's only then when you can finally unify.
Yeah, and they're great books too. So if y'all have not read the books, they're great. I think it's by James. I want to say James Comey, but that sounds like the guy. I'm pretty sure it's James Comey.
I didn't even know they were books.
Oh yeah,
so
they're
watch the show. That's awesome.
They're great books. Yeah, so check them out. They're on Audible as well. A great book series. So yeah, on to the worst. Who would you consider the worst in your opinion?
Okay, so
this is a harder one.
It is because there's lots of opportunity for saying the worst, and I had this tendency to lean towards like completely ineffectual or like almost like we said if you ask the average person who like Lyndon Johnson was, they have no idea.
Yeah.
And so to me like that generally tends towards probably didn't do anything, but then I don't know how he did that, right? How did he get all of this stuff done? How did he replace a president that was assassinated that everybody knows their name, get all of these things done, and then no one knows who that person is?
Yeah, and what's also weird is that, so JFK, everybody knows and loves that dude, right? But he wasn't a president for that long before he got
No.
assassinated.
Right.
Lyndon B. Johnson got done way more stuff than JFK ever did, and probably was ever actually going to do. And this is also, I'll give the caveat, yes, the Vietnam, because someone's gonna get angry every time I say it, but the Vietnam shit was terrible. With you there. Well, I'm totally with you there. But as far as like what he got done to the American citizens' lives, generally greatly improved America. So, yeah.
So it's a tie for me, like on both sides of Lincoln, right? So it's freaking Buchanan leading into what Lincoln had to deal with, but then also after Lincoln dies, then Andrew Johnson does a really terrible job with like setting the country back up, right? And trying to finish off the war and like reestablish the country as a whole, because that took far too long. It was kind of a piecemeal, half-hearted effort because what they really wanted to do, because the North won, was completely control the South, but that's not really going to be possible. And then doing the sort of what the British were doing when we were colonies, where it's like, well, we're just going to put a Northerner in charge of these little areas. Like, well, it didn't work the first time.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was going to work if we did that again? Like, we had to work to fix the problems that we had in place, but also to kind of like heal the wounds that was there. But a lot of effort to like just do it the way we're telling you to do it was done, but very little done to try to like bring those states back into the fold for a long time. It took really 2 presidencies, but I'll put it on him because he kind of started the ball rolling. So it's hard for me to kind of pick either side, because also all of the efforts of of Buchanan like leading towards it, firing it up even worse, not really addressing things that could have maybe, I won't say prevented it, I would say like maybe delayed it. I think that it was kind of coming,
Yeah, I'm totally with you with James Buchanan. I think one of the main things that he did was like that was messed up is that he was kind of playing both sides, and he said that the South was justified in having slaves because it was in the Constitution.
Right. Because it was mentioned, just because it was in there. Not that it said it was okay, but just mentioned.
Yeah, it's that was obviously disastrous because right after that we had the Civil War. So it was the rise of the Confederacy. It was the additional rise of the Confederacy was because of him. So, yeah.
And he continued to play throughout his entire presidency to let's just keep the number of states balanced, right? So like, this state's coming into the Union. We have, so we'll make this one 2. We'll do these 2, and then this part is slave and this part is free. That's not a good solution, dude.
No, yeah.
It's just going to keep building up the base on both sides who are... And in a couple of cases, too, I'm trying to think if it's Kansas or... I was looking at... I can't remember if it was Kansas or if it was... oh, gosh, I can't think of it. Anyways, where they, were... It was a new state coming in, the balance was a certain way, so they made it this one, and they were like, we didn't... Like, they had their own constitution, right? That's the only way they become a state. They're like, we didn't ask for that. Like, we didn't ask to be slaves, or we were like set up to be free. Like, one way or the other, they were like, that's not the side we were going towards. We'd like to be the other side of this discussion. Either way, I was like, well, but that's the balance we need right now. Like, that's not. You just pissed off the whole state for a whole different reason. I think it was Kansas. I'm trying to find a more specific answer to it. Sorry.
So people that are listening to the podcast are like, why aren't you saying President Trump? Well, honestly, like the James Buchanan things that we just said that Trump did, they're echoes of James Buchanan. But history will tell us whether or not he was going to be one of the worst. Because, yeah, he did a lot of terrible things. But James Buchanan at the time, he did things that he thought was right, and the consequences weren't felt until years later, right?
Yeah.
So, and the same thing... Go ahead.
So yeah, all the negative effects were known to be bad. Like, you're like, this is not the best things. People were talking about it. It was in all the newspapers. But like, it didn't like really culminate until the next presidency.
Yeah, and that's
Immediately, and we didn't see that, so there was at least that.
but that's kind of like where we are right now is like the question mark of literally Trump did some of the same rhetoric as James Buchanan. Like he literally had an insurgency, and he was just like didn't help. He said that there were good people. You know, he's letting this whole racist, weird group of Americans be platformed, and then not tell them that they're bad, tell them that they're good, that they're good people, and this could have serious consequences in the future of America. So we will see if he either gets the James Buchanan level or eclipses it. That could happen because we're still seeing um, a rise in violence against like minorities in America by groups that think that America only belongs to them and nobody else, no foreigners. Like look at the rise of violence between Asian Americans, and then now we're getting the whole Jewish Americans getting hate too, and we're still seeing horrible amounts of police brutality against African Americans and people of color, and it's just like he didn't help any of that. You know, he actually made it worse. So we will see. That the only reason why I didn't say he wasn't the worst is because it's too soon, and I can't say that this person that was a terrible president in my recent memory, all right, as far as I've been alive, um, is going to be the worst president ever. Like that seems to me like incredibly, um, has like really no forethought in like not looking at historical events in America. So I'm not going to say Trump at all, even though I think he's a terrible person and likely to me he was a terrible president, but there was ones that had overarching problems that led into a war in America. So
yeah, and I think it would be an easy target that seems like it would be something people would talk about, but it's also kind of short-sighted, like you said, like not even considering the entire hundreds of years worth of history to say that someone else maybe did worse when we did have a civil war. Like that's pretty bad. It's pretty obvious that we can look back and say this did happen. And I think that's kind of your key point was like not saying that's not going to be what happened. It's just that we haven't seen it yet and can't guarantee. So what's funny is I'm reading a couple of things so I can make one or two more points about Buchanan specifically is that it was because it was basically a lame duck presidency, right? That was the thing. It was like got in there but had no ability to get anything done and just basically pissed off both sides more. And that there wasn't a whole lot that really got done, right? In the comparison you were just making, like, could really probably call that a lame duck presidency that just passed. There wasn't really much that actually got done. And definitely just worked to piss off both sides.
Real quick, because we try to make this podcast accessible to everybody. Explain what a lame duck, because usually you hear lame duck like Congress or whatever, or even presidency, because usually, well, just explain it, because I know what it is.
So it specifically is usually just referred to as the period after the election when that president already knows that they did not get reelected, and so then they're just sitting in the seat waiting to be replaced. And there are some cases where there's at least 3 or 4 that I could probably look back and see and say that basically the whole presidency was that way because they had the presidency, but then had no ability to get anything else done because they neither had the House or the Senate, didn't have enough people in the Supreme Court, had nobody fighting on their side. Their own party was kind of weak, so they had no ability really to influence or get anything done. So they're kind of just stuck sitting there as a figurehead and trying to, like, hey, this is important. We're like, yeah, we're not listening to you. So it kind of turned the whole presidency that way. And then your example towards, was that good?
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then your example towards there being insurrection,
yes,
right, during this last one, like Fort Sumter was still during his term technically. Didn't really send a strong response, but then sent a response. So it's like you didn't really help defend the fort, but then you sent enough troops to like, well, why did you send people? Like you still pissed off the Southerners, and then you didn't defend the fort.
This sounds real familiar.
So that's how Buchanan is definitely there. Oh, and then that he died of a cold.
Jesus Christ.
in 1868.
Well,
Just got
that's
sick.
that. I
Like,
mean,
dude, so weak. You just died of cold. That's how bad your presidency was too.
that's terrible. I mean, it could have
I
been
did
like
not
a
know
hundred.
this, but apparently several of his biographers have suggested that he was celibate, homosexual, or asexual. Like, just never really. They couldn't ever pin it down. Like, didn't have a partner, but it was never really like obvious about what was going on. To the point where every biographer has written something different. I was like, that's
Wow.
interesting, kind of weird side note.
All right. And this will be an interesting one, as like one of the worst presidents ever. Only because he had no chance to be effective as being a president. It's kind of funny. Sorry, but William,
Yeah, gotta make a note.
William Henry Harrison
Yeah.
had the longest inauguration speech, and he died 30 days later. It was the shortest presidency ever. So yeah, it'd be one of the worst only because he literally had no chance to do anything.
So he was in the military. I was trying to see he fought the Battle of Tippecanoe. Anyways, just kind of a weird. Like, obviously, you can't. That'd be like if you were gonna go on straight up like not able to get anything done.
You got nothing.
Could probably do it since you just didn't have time.
You
So
had
who
30
was-
days.
Huh?
I said you had 30 days.
Yeah. How come you didn't get anything done? What's wrong with you? Could have at least written executive orders. Come on. No, they didn't do that right now.
God damn, I can't. This executive order thing is just like, come on, man.
Yeah.
But it's also
So-
the executive orders comes down to the filibuster, and I think that's a whole different conversation. Like, it needs to be a podcast.
Yeah. It would be fun to, like, I don't know, just try to do it as a filibuster, but that doesn't make sense. Because then it would mean instead of being balanced, one of us would just talk the whole time and not let the other one talk.
Yeah. I mean, that would make people understand. We can make it like
Yeah.
a 16-hour podcast or a 24-hour podcast because people do that shit sometimes.
Yep. They will just stay up there and keep talking.
Yeah.
Or at least between the two of us, we could keep it going. Just, I yield my time to the and then you get up and keep talking. It was like,
I've always wanted to say it's even though it's not in a filibuster, but like reclaiming my time. I think that's one of the best terms used in all of Congress. It's mainly the House, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the congressional STFU.
Yeah, I love that shit.
Shut up, sit down.
Yeah. What you said wasn't what I wanted to hear. So I'm taking my time back.
Did you forget what we talked about? You're supposed to see this.
Yeah.
So his replacement was John Tyler, and he was an independent, which is like the only one.
Wow.
He was initially a Democrat, but because he went against Andrew Jackson, they basically kicked him out. And he's like, but I still got this name everybody knows, so he ran anyways.
Name recognition is a huge deal. I mean, honestly, we need to get rid of the two-party system. Like, the two parties that we have right now are not in the best interest of Americans, of most Americans anyway. And I don't think that Joe Biden's doing a terrible job, but I still think he's serving the party more than the people.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still early in his presidency, but I also, again, maybe not as plugged in as I possibly could be, but I haven't heard a whole lot actually yet.
Well, I mean, the rollout of even then it's controversial. The way that he's handling COVID has been much better than the last president. Like, that's easy, but the last president didn't do a great job with COVID. But even saying that, like, I think that it could have been way better. Like the way that we're dealing with, like, there was still no national strategy with COVID. They gave
to start like shutting down the restriction stuff. There's no like concrete plan towards getting there.
Yeah, and people argue, well, every region's different. Okay, well then have an actual mandate that says, like, once you get under X percent of people infected or people in the hospital or people that are dying, then you can roll back your shit. Not just like give like a guideline and then like, well, you could ignore this if you're Texas or whatever other state or Florida or whatever. It seems to me like it's so stupid that they can do that, and then. Just like the lack of getting the vaccines out there, and then like the fact that we're hesitant to share with other countries. And I understand that there was like damage that was done by the last president, but like for people to be hesitant about the vaccines and even COVID in general. But they should have been more on the forefront of like really talking about how it's safe. These are the guidelines, and explaining on how science changes, because I think most Americans are kind of fucking dumb when it comes to science, and they don't understand that once you get new information, you should probably change your idea. Like if you're seeing that, hey, these numbers are changing for the better or for the worse, then you change your recommendations. But the fact that for most Americans, they were just changing recommendations willy nilly. I understood what they were, but I had to like do research and like seeing like, hey, why are they making recommendations?
That needed to be at the forefront of that comment. Like, hey, we can change for this because this and this. I had to have like a little bit of a quick conversation with somebody today, and I spun it out probably in too fast of a fashion the way I can do things sometimes. And they're like, "Oh, so you're really passionate about it?" I was like, "No, I just read about it. I don't actually really care if you care or don't care, but I just wanted to make sure you knew the information that you could find anywhere." Yeah. But I just wanted to get that out before we cover the stuff I actually wanted to talk to you about. Because they were like, well, I don't want to get the vaccine because they need to have all the testing done. I was like, it did have all the testing done. Yeah. They just sped up all the administrative processes. They cut all the red tape, all the bureaucracy that normally goes along with drug testing. They told them you can start step 1 and step 3 and step 7 at the same time because they don't interfere with each other. Just go ahead and start them rather than us making you do them sequentially 1, 2, 3, like we would do with a normal drug test. This is important. Start this thing at the same time. So yeah, it sped up the timeline. That didn't mean they didn't do any of the testing that they weren't supposed to do. Moving on. And he's like, dang.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not hard. It still got tested.
Yes, and what's crazy to me, so pretty much everybody they're already vaccinated with like whatever. Nobody in their entire fucking life actually looked up how long it took the vaccine to get tested on anybody. They didn't give a fuck. They're just like, when you're a baby, you get vaccinated and you're fine. And then when it comes to like this new COVID thing, oh goddamn it, I had a really good point to make and I just fucking had a brain fart. But it's just... No, look, okay, with these vaccines, okay, everybody's like, well, it's not tested. Look what happened to Johnson & Johnson. Okay, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, when a couple of people, I think it was like less than 50 people, women that were on birth control, they started getting blood clots. None of them died. And what happened? They stopped the Johnson & Johnson vaccine immediately. Mm-hmm. So people are like so worried about like side effects like that. There was a side effect that literally killed nobody. Mm-hmm. And
was found to be unrelated.
Yeah, they saw that it was with women that had, birth control, and they were fine. So, and more people, I mean, just to give you the actual, like, correlation, well, not even correlation, a better example, more women get blood clots from birth control than got blood clots from the Johnson & Johnson vaccine while on birth control.
So maybe it's actually helping.
Yeah. They're fine. So
numbers would say that, but that doesn't make it science.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. Meanwhile, 600,000 people and 600,000 Americans have died from COVID, and people don't seem to give a fuck. Anyway, so weird segue. I'm just sorry. I'm just tired of like apathetic Americans, and they're getting on my last nerve at this point in my life. So.
Well, and again, a big part of that might be that for probably a large portion of the population that I think exists but doesn't know it, is they're not actually being represented, right? So they don't look at the government and see an option that actually represents their beliefs and their concepts and what they want to do. And like you said, 2 parties doesn't do it. There needs to be more options. And if we had more options, then people might get more engaged in what's going on and be less apathetic because they actually see that they could be a part of, the conversation and what's going on because their representative actually represents the same concepts and beliefs and thoughts that they have.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that we do need access to better candidates that are more towards the center,
Moderates be a thing.
Say again?
Moderates used to be a thing, like actually being a moderate.
Yeah, well, now when you talk about moderates, as far as like political candidates go, they like shit on it. Like you can't be a centrist, you can't be like, Why? Like, why can't you do that? Like, seriously, like, why don't you take a little bit from both sides and make a better society? Because right now, listen, if you're on the extreme right or the extreme left, both your societies I don't want to be a part of. Neither
Well,
one.
that sounds
Yeah. So, yeah, we just need some. That's why you need to become president, man. I'm just saying. And put me somewhere on your council somewhere where I'm getting just paid to do something. I don't care what it
sit
is.
around like they do. Just get paid to sit around and talk.
No, well, yeah, I could be a communicator. That's fine. I'm cool with that.
I did have to talk about running for office in an email today because I am putting together my package to like apply for my doctorate. And I have to I have to get like 3 letters of recommendation from previous professors or whatever. And so they're like, oh, well, yeah, just explain to me like what the degree program is you're going for and what you think you're going to do with it afterwards. And I was like, well, I'm getting a degree in a doctorate in public administration and policy. And I'd like to, once I retire, probably get involved in city councils or community involvement, basically to try to just make my society better. I'm like, yeah, that's basically the same. I'm gonna probably run for office and try to do something, right?
Yeah, being effective, politician.
Yeah.
Which is contradictory, but whatever. Somebody's got to do it. Lyndon B. Johnson did it.
I was gonna say, it hasn't really happened in like 60-something years. Let's see if we can do it again.
Yeah, somebody can do it again. But somebody's got to do it. Why not you?
Because I'm not like 6.5 feet tall and huge and can't like lean in on people and give them the Johnson treatment.
You can give him the Johnson treatment. You know what that is? Just punch him in the dick.
Say I'll kick him in the shin.
Yeah. It is so weird though how like most presidents are tall because people they trust people that are tall for some reason. This is a fact. It's just odd to me. I'm like, you're just tall. That's all it is to me.
And so like because we do kind of go into foundational concepts for politics and governments and societies, right? My political like politics 101, government 101 class or whatever, the professor had this really really cool way of getting everybody to understand really fundamental concepts for societies. We watched every episode of Lost for the first 6 it must have been eight episodes of the very first season, right? Which is establishing a society from scratch with no requirements to each other, no obligations, no rules, right? And who are the 2 people who pretty much are vying for power in it? The tall doctor and the tall like other guy, right?
Yeah.
So two white guys that are tall. They're the same height, exactly the same height. And they're both the tallest 2 guys in the group.
It's crazy to me. Like when to me,
everybody just turns and looks at them like, what do we do?
And it never to me it never registers like how tall somebody is. It's also weird though because most people that know me, they think that I'm taller than I actually am, but I'm not tall. I'm like literally average height. So, but no, somebody that's taller than me, like I don't see them as like either intimidating or have additional leadership qualities. I'm just like, you're just taller than me. Like you need to prove to me like, what you're doing. So
yeah. So what are you saying is average height though?
5'8", 5'9". Okay. That's average height.
It's not. That's right.
What's average height?
You're taller than average. That's right.
Oh well, slightly.
Yeah,
if
very.
anything.
5'7" is I think national average right now. But
is it really? Yeah. Well,
that's
really people in. Yeah. I definitely don't tower over people, but I do stand up straight, and I think that's what gets people is that I stand up straight.
People don't notice that I'm short because they come in with confidence.
Yeah. Wait, how tall are you?
It's 5'7".
5'7". So
average height, but yeah.
We're probably around.
So like, there's a gunny in one of our sections where he's damn tall, and like, he has no problem being like, hey, what do you need to do? Like, deferring to me for stuff, but it's also military, so I don't know if that works. We're all kind of trained to understand people's experience and rank and positions do have a purpose and a reason in the meeting. So
look at this guy. All right, so this guy is like downplaying. This is like he's a perfect politician right here. He's downplaying like his clout in the military. This dude was in like articles recently, And when I saw the arts, there's like Marine Corps groups for IT because obviously I'm in IT and I was in the Marine Corps. Um, and there was an article that came up, and I looked at it and I was like, that looks like Papa Bear. And I was like, oh, I know this dude. Like it was an article about doing IT stuff and like how to properly run the military and like a lot of stuff that we talk about on the podcast. And I was like, yeah, we do the podcast together. He's a great dude. And then a bunch of other people were just like, yeah, this dude's dope. A bunch of people, not just
I did not even go look at that post.
yeah.
I can't see this stuff.
People
So
love you, man.
I am doing a second one already too with SEO.
Are you really? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're putting one together for all of Access also, like to kind of just showcase what Access does, I guess. We have to, and Enrique and I will be editing that on Tuesday.
Nice. Well, it's great because I think that most. So when I tell people that I'm a Marine, even in like my normal like corporate life, they're just like, really, you're a Marine? I'm like, yeah. And they think Marines are supposed to be stupid, but it's like, hey, I got like the most education that I've gotten, and like outside of like me being an autodidact, was through the Marine Corps. Like seriously, they had really good programs on learning like how to work with radios. And when I became a network security guy, like working on a DCID, that just that was excellent. And then also working on there's another equipment that I worked on too, but people don't know what the fuck it is, so it doesn't matter. But I learned all these skills through the Marine Corps that were very technical, and most people think that Marines are basically retarded.
I had someone after that thing tell me that McSass is the premier communications and electronics school in the DoD. I was like, I don't know where you're getting that from. Not from me. I didn't say that. That's not what I said. I don't know who said that. I think we got a long way to go. But maybe we're better than others, but I don't know about that. I have not had a chance to evaluate every other school in the DoD, so I couldn't say that.
Well, I think the thing is that when it comes to like Marine communicators, is that we have the drive of being a Marine first of all. So like we're just willing to get shit done. Like you want to give us shitty equipment, which honestly we didn't really get on the comm side in the Marine Corps, except radio had shit equipment. But if you're on the IT side, like you had decent equipment. Like it was pretty close to like it wasn't cutting edge, but it was way closer than like Vietnam era shit when I was in. So and I think people just they don't seem to get that. Is like we had things that were comparable to the civilian world and skills that definitely translated over. And so when that's why you don't have a lot of like Marine communicators in the Marine Corps anymore because we had skills or Marine IT people anyway.
Yeah.
In the Marine Corps because there's literally no reason for us to stay in because there's no monetary incentive. There's incentive to obviously protect your country, and I get that. But if you have kids,
it's a whole bunch of stuff to unpack there. But like, did you get the chance to like actually sit through the whole thing or just kind of read the notes?
Sit through the whole what?
Sorry, that whole video from ASIA or no?
I didn't actually. I just read the article. I didn't see the video. I just read the article, and
So
I saw there was like
the
airmen and there was an army guy too. I think.
yeah, no airmen. Just so it was all Chief Warrant Officers.
Oh,
Which was
okay.
cool. And there's two Army Chief Warrant Officer 5s, which one of them was really at SOCOM, so he was more representing the soft community than the Army community. And then there was a Navy Chief Warrant Officer also.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
But like we did our spiel sort of for a little while, and then did a live Q&A session. And one of the questions was about kind of that, like if we are really doing a good job, say we made everything perfect, and we're really training these people to have these military members to have really, really great technical skills that have marketable value in the civilian world because we make sure that they are trained to do the best that we possibly can. Does it make sense to keep paying them exactly the same as everybody else of a rank in the entire DoD when we know that's going to affect retention and their capabilities also, stuff, right? Which I then took that question like, no, absolutely. And we already have a system for it, right? You already have flight pay, you have hazards pay. There's already these systems where you say, we're going to add this pay on for this thing that you do. And it's easy. You figure out what those skills are. And if you're in a job that requires you to do that skill, because sometimes we go do other things, right? If I'm on recruiting duty, even if I have a certification, yeah, you're not getting your extra pay, bro, because you're getting special duty assignment, you're getting recruiter pay,
Yeah.
not your skill pay. And when you come back, you better have kept your shirt up, right?
Yeah.
But like, just use that system, and you can. It's not going to close the gap. It's never going to close the gap. We're not going to ever give them that much money, right? But when the gap is smaller, then those intangibles that I'm being a Marine, I'm doing this thing as part of my country, helps fill the gap the rest of the way for that person who's like on the fence, and that'll help retention, help us keep a couple of those really smart IT guys in these fields so that we don't lose everybody who's got the skills and can just go out and get a job making 10 times as much as they will in the military. So
Yeah.
that was kind of my level end piece.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great. And the other part for me is honestly the other side of like filling that gap is getting rid of contractors that can do a job that a Marine could do. Like if you're telling me, so when I was in, I wasn't getting paid that much money when I was in, but if I'm getting paid 8 to 10 times more to do the same exact job as a contractor in the same spot, like why would I? Like seriously, like stop doing that. Like,
well, and if we weren't hiring them, then there wouldn't be the demand signal for it.
Yeah,
those jobs wouldn't exist.
They need to stop.
Less incentive to get out, and suddenly it all works its way back.
There needs to be a serious conversation on the usefulness of military contractors, because I think that the vast majority of them are worthless. Me being an actual former military contractor. There are jobs that military members can do, that they should do, and they can get paid, at a decent wage to do so. I think that the DoD is wasting billions of dollars a year, billions, if not trillions. No, just billions a year on military contracts.
So we're gonna go comedy style here and like tie it right back to the beginning joke, right? But it's the beginning comment or post we kind of talk or concept we talk about, which was like, if we talk about how much money we spend for the military budget, there's parts of that get broken down in Congress, and they talk about numbers. Then they're like, how many of a specific rank or a specific job. It's all broken down like number to number in Title 10 and stuff, and they'll say this is exactly how many people you can have. So if those two things don't line up or make sense, and we're saying we just need to cut numbers instead of saying we need to cut budget, then we're not like really solving the problem that you just kind of mentioned, which is if we don't talk about that, we might actually be able to increase the numbers of military people, but drop the budget if we cut these contracting things. No one there saying that, because they're just like, well, hey, if we just reduce the numbers of people doing these military jobs, we should be good. Then suddenly the end result becomes, well, we still need people to do those things. We have to hire contractors to do it, and it costs 10 times as much.
Yeah, I mean, when I tell people, I tell people a lot that we need to reduce the DoD budget, and they get so angry about it. I'm just like, there's so much waste there. I'm not saying. I'm
just seeing like you go on with a friend out to have coffee, and you're just like, we should reduce the budget. Like, just stop talking about it.
Yeah, they get all mad because it's a knee-jerk reaction. Yeah, and I'm just like, I'm not saying reduce the amount of military members in the military. We could likely up the number of military members in the military if we just actually work semi-frugal about where we spend our money in the military, and if we got rid of all the vast majority of government contractors, I would say probably 95%. I don't think that that's unreasonable, seriously. And then also renegotiating every single DoD to private corporation contract, like actually renegotiating it, because they're ridiculous.
Yeah, and I could see the number being 95% easily, because if it's a job that's seriously important and needs a civilian to do it, make it a civilian job. GS, civilian job, it stays there, and it's one that we know about, and it's one that we fill in, and it's one that has a pay scale, and you can keep track of and know what's going on. The contracting stuff is so gray, so fuzzy area to most of the bigger organizations. It's just a pot of money. They have no idea what's actually going on with it.
Yeah, like I said, there's people that literally just washing clothes. That's contract. Why are you washing my clothes? Like, you don't need to wash my clothes. I can wash my own clothes. It's so ridiculous.
And most of us were out there for 2 to 3 months at least without being able to wash clothes at all. We're just you just live with it. You deal with it.
Yeah. When I was in the field, like back before contracting became a big thing,
Yeah.
just wash your own goddamn clothes. You wear your what do they call them? You wear your silkies as underwear. And you take a shower with them shits on. They get clean too, and then you clean your camis, and you're good to go. Pull out your fresh ones, and you make it work. But I don't need to take my stuff to some person to wash my it's. Have we become this weak that we can't wash our own clothes?
It's the big base mentality thing from those two big conflicts in deserts where everything it's weird. It's weird for sure.
Yeah, you need to stop. Anyway, so does this podcast, I guess.
With that,
Well, the podcast should stop it. We already went off topic of the best and the worst. We agreed on the best, and we agreed on the worst, really.
yeah, because I think I kind of tend more towards afterwards because I think we were getting there. Like I don't think that Buchanan could have done anything about it. I think he just didn't make it any better for sure.
Yeah.
And the best case scenario he could have possibly done was extended how much longer it would have taken. That's the best case scenario. So then trying to do reconstruction afterwards was also totally bungled, and I think it's probably a bigger mistake because you just had a war and you brought it all back together. There's a big moment and opportunity there to make that actually work for you.
Yeah.
And taking a disaster, right, and turning it into positive forward movement for society, and he totally fucked that up. So, to me, that's a bigger offense to me, historically looking back. When you look at kind of that slow march towards the Civil War, you're that's what's happening. You can see it coming for decades. This is going to happen. And so he was just the last one before it really did, and didn't help. But I don't think it was his fault.
It was the political hot potato.
Yeah.
He's the last guy.
And obviously, he just was here you go, Abe.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything with it. But yeah, I see that offense, the not taking advantage of that opportunity to actually push us towards a greater unification, even though it's what the whole goal was. That to me is more of a mistake.
Yeah. Well, all right.
But I think we are wrapping it up.
Yeah, no, I mean this is a great conversation. I thank Dirty Stew and all of our international listeners. If you wanted to learn more about presidencies and the way our government works, this is a good podcast to break it down to for the common person.
Try to keep it plain language.
Yeah.
I was thinking just a minute ago though, as I said, we're wrapping it up. I was we really do kind of need a standard way to wrap up because we don't really.
No, we don't. But we're
we got a way to start. We're kind of need to figure out this ending.
We do, and we also need to figure out how to get on iTunes because I've had a serious issue with getting on iTunes, even still to this day.
Still getting us?
Yeah, they're still just being dicks. So I think it's the problem on SoundCloud side, but I'm going to try again on Sunday because we're actually not passing validation through third parties, and I don't know why. It just spins.
Okay.
So
we'll see if we can sort it out. I'll be available, but not here. I'll be out of pocket. We're going to Port Hueneme, which is on the northeastern side of LA.
Been there before.
It's the RV. It's second practice, and then we drive across country.
Nice. And you're going to Florida, right?
Yeah, we're going to
Disneyland, right? Disney World.
Not this weekend. Starting next weekend, we make the drive all the way to Disney World. We're going to stop and visit Cindy's family.
So we're going to miss a week? Well, they won't know. Listeners won't know. We'll get it done.
Oh, yeah. I'll still be available on Thursdays.
Okay. It'll just be a different background.
Oh, yeah. I won't have this cool setup.
Honestly,
my face will be much pastier because there's a lot of yellow on me right now to make me look tanner.
This guy. Actually, I do it too sometimes because I'm light-skinned because I don't get enough sunlight.
Lately, I have. It was hot outside. It gets hot here. You know that.
Yeah. What was the temperature today where you're at?
104.
Jesus Christ, already?
Yeah, there's been a few. Actually, maybe today was not that, and that was yesterday. I can't remember. One of the days this week was the first day since winter. It went over 100. I was there's 104. Lovely.
Trying to see. I think I'm pretty sure it was in the 60s today for me. Maybe 70s. So
Tomorrow's
Perfect.
high is 88, 91 on Sunday. And that's Yucca. Yucca's cooler than 29 Palms.
Yeah, fuck. 29 Palms. The place is terrible. I don't know why they would put a base. I mean, I understand why they put a base there. It's for suffering, but you know.
It's far no, it's far enough away from everything. Nobody cares if you shoot off artillery most of the time.
Yeah, it's the largest base in the Marine Corps still, right?
I don't know. So
By square
there's.
footage.
Hmm?
I think it's by square footage. It's the largest base.
I have been doing some measurements for like tropo shots,
Mhm.
and I'm not 100% sure that that's true.
What base do you think it is?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like I was trying to be able to do tropo scatter because everybody tells me the same thing you said. Like this is the biggest base in Marine Corps, whatever, whatever. So I'm trying to figure out a tropo scatter shot, and I'm like corner to corner as far as possible on the base. I'm like, this isn't far enough for tropo. How is this place so big? I think I like need to go. I would have to go off 29 Palms to do a tropo shot, but then I have to deal with spectrum deconfliction between different geographical areas. I'm like, I can't. See the problems I deal with?
Yeah. Well, when we say it's big, but it's also not densely populated. So only like a small portion of the entire base has people on it. The other parts are just for like training purposes. So
There's probably more scorpions than there are
than
people.
people, yeah. And I remember when I went to 29 Palms, I went there in 1999. And when I got there, there was ice on the ground. When I left, it was like 126 degrees. I was like, man, why?
It's weird. The weird place. Enrique sent you that picture of the building the other day. You guys trained it
HF,
up.
yeah. That took me back.
You're out there. Okay, let's close this out because I think we've been going a little bit longer than normal. But
Yeah.
coming
No,
up on 3 hours.
we're okay. Yeah, but yeah, let's definitely close it out.
All right, so that was best and worst U.S. presidents. I will say that hopefully not continuing the conversation too much longer, but that it is interesting, like you said, that it is still a topic that is of international interest, right? Like other people are still kind of interested in American history and American politics, even when they're not American. Even this is going to sound stupid because those who don't know, but like super into Lego and parts of many Lego communities, and that's a very international group. Like it's always talking about like media stuff here or our politics. They're always interested in it. It's a very odd thing, I think.
Well, it's
You pointed it out earlier.
yeah. I mean, it's odd, but it's like I feel like the rest of the world still expects the United States of America to keep leading the world.
Yeah.
And I think that over the past, 4 years, we have had some definite stumbles on like leading the world. And so
So
people,
like,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, people still think that we need to get back into that position. They're still interested to seeing like what's going on in America, and I think that a lot of the world is their eyes are being opened onto the actual issues with America. Because to be honest with you, in my mind anyway, like a lot of the positions that the rest of the world have about America is kind of propaganda-y, really. It's like stuff that we told them, like what we're like in America, but it's not necessarily the case. And so I think that their eyes are being opened up to like what life is like here in America for at least some subsets of Americans. And so for them, they're just like, well, what's really going on? So I think it's good.
So a lot of it is based on the idyllic thing, right? Like
Yeah.
this is what the ideal is. This is what we say our goals and objectives are. This is the society we want to be. Um, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's where we are, but then I think people get blinded by that fact and just focus on believing that we're already there. It's already perfect, but perfect doesn't ever happen. And
Yeah.
to get towards good, you have to put work in. So I guess that's a pretty cool way to end it, I guess.
Yeah. We're still trying.
You gotta put the work in, man. And it takes all of us. So if you're listening, think about how you can personally make a difference to someone near you and in your society, in your close knit group, whether it's on this kind of topic or not. But just what can you do to make something in your community better? That's how you really make a difference.
Yeah. I'll give you a good example today. So I try to be sort of altruistic. I try to like help people when I can, but I don't talk to my neighbors a lot, which I need to like fix. Um, but like one of my neighbors came by today. I was on the Peloton bike and I was riding for like an hour long ride, So I'm on it, and doorbell rings, and I pull it up on my phone because my phone is on my bike. And I answer. I'm just like, "Yeah, what's going on?" And she's just like, "Do you know how to change the lock?" And I was like, I was thinking, it is a long ride, and I was just like, "No, I don't know how to change the lock." She's like, "Okay, thanks." And then like right after she like started walking away, I was like, "Shit, I do. I know. I didn't know what she was talking about because I was like in the middle of my ride because I was like, I even let her know I'm exercising, and I was like, was she thinking like a door lock?" And I was like,
Yeah.
if she's thinking about like a door lock, yeah, I can change the fucking door lock. And so afterwards, I was like, damn. Uh, I took a shower and I went like to her apartment. And I was like, hey, sorry, I'm pretty sure you meant door lock. Yes, I can change the door lock. And then she was like, yeah, that's what I meant. And I was like, okay. I was like, I can help you. And then she's like, oh, I got it taken care of. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, sorry, but yeah, I can do that. Because like before, like one of her friends like couldn't, they didn't know how to jumpstart a car. So she came over to help me jumpstart the car. And I was like, you don't know how to jumpstart a car? But I was like, you know what? I guess people probably don't, you know?
Yeah, it could be. It's just, sometimes it's the simple things like that that um, just you never had to do it,
Yeah.
and so it's never been a thing. So that was one of the big ones. Like do those simple things. You talk about Logan being an adult, got his first car in Okinawa, right, $300 car or whatever. Gets a flat tire. I'm there. I'm like, no, you are 100% changing this tire. This is your car.
I'll walk you
You
through
will
it.
deal with whatever is going on with it. I'm here if something happens.
Yeah.
Bust your fingers open or something because that could very easily happen. So be careful, and I'll be right here listening to my audiobook. Let me know if you need me. He's sat out there in the Okinawa heat, sweating like, oh, this sucks. Like that's part of owning a car. Congratulations. It's great and convenient and amazing until it doesn't work and you got to do something with it. So.
Yeah, I had to do the same thing with my oldest. And when her car got here and her brakes were totally shot, and I was just like, we need to change these brakes. And like her stepdad is a mechanic. I'm like, he didn't know that I pulled the brakes off and they were literally metal on metal. And I was just like, I drove from Michigan to California with brakes that were metal on metal. Okay. And so
I'm surprised they drove in Michigan.
Yeah. So I showed her how to change her brakes, and then also later on, because when she went back, I showed her how to change her oil. So yeah, it's basic things that people just don't. People need to. We need to focus our education on things like that, like more common things that you're gonna deal with in life, like knowing how to do your taxes, changing your goddamn tires, changing your oil. Things you should what to look out for in a loan, credit cards, how to build your credit, shit like that. But nobody teaches you that.
You know what I would say is like those aren't things that are in the standard public education system stuff, and maybe don't need to be, but then they should be like the very next available thing, right? Graduate high school should be the normal still stuff, but then maybe community colleges offer those things like for free to everybody. Like here's some basic stuff. Come learn some basic stuff with us. And you can still take them while you're in high school if you're just ready for that. But some people just like aren't ready, but have them available.
Yeah, well, the problem is with like one of the things that I said is that with like the financial stuff is that if you don't understand like loans and APR rates and things like that, just getting into college, like you're already fucked because you don't understand that what you're getting into is gonna last you your entire life. And yeah,
it's a really good point. Like say like that should be a requirement for your college application. Like, hey, did you complete that community college class everybody needs to take on loans? Like they do that for us like in the Marine Corps. Like, hey, you can't go to this thing until you take this prerequisite little class.
Should be prerequisite.
Yeah. Let me click through this. Okay, good, done. Hey, well, at least we afforded you the opportunity to read that thing about loans. There's a lot of money involved there. Hopefully, you pay attention.
Yes. And you cannot get out of it. For now.
You just keep delaying it.
Yeah. Anyway, let's end it now.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for the conversation. Yeah, this is a good one. Thank you, Dirty Stu, for the suggestion.
Hell yeah. Thanks, man.
All right, we're out of this bitch. He's wearing a Goonie shirt, and I have a Goonie shirt that looks just like that, or similar to that, but mine's red. And I wore it yesterday. I'm pretty sure it was yesterday.
I could have swore I got it already. So yeah, that's the shirt. Never say die.
Goonies never said die. Yeah, it's good to be back. I think the last podcast was so enjoyable for me. It went way better than I initially. Not that I thought it was gonna be bad, but it was still like really cool to talk about like the post office, and
Yeah, such an obscure topic.
yeah.
And we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Sorry. Let me grab a beer. Hopefully,
I got something.
yeah.
So I think I'm ready. There's new Trulies out.
Which ones?
The Punch.
Punch? What? They're trying to fucking win everything, man. They're doing too much. Oh Jesus! All right, I gotta get those.
Yeah, so I just put one of these in the freezer because I got them the other day and I haven't put them in the fridge yet. So we got Fruit Punch, Berry Punch, Tropical Punch, Citrus Punch.
Nice. I was just drinking what was in this cup was a lemonade one. I think it was just a
Yeah.
strawberry lemonade. So